This building getting
Okay.
better and better. Okay.
His
Let's,
agenda's better than everybody else.
I know.
oh, it's colorful too. Mine is usually like same to text out. Let's call it January 28th.
It's the 27th.
27th.
That's a typo on here.
Okay, 27, Finance and Advisory and Audit Committee meeting to order. We have, let's see, roll call.
Yes, sir.
please.
Chair Lung Chu,
Present?
Vice Chair Elise Ryan,
Present?
Committee Member Cheryl Miller,
Here.
Ken Johnson,
President.
and Virginia Standish.
Here. Oh, we need,
Okay, before we get approved agenda, I'd like to add an item here for discussion.
okay.
We talked about, a moment ago, we talked about the system down and then also regarding the proprietorship of the software program that we have experienced with the past two town manager, that we never owned the software. And also, I remember that I had a chance to talk to Councilman Rocket last year. So regarding why shouldn't we own our own software program rather than to rely on the consultant, the outside contractor to have, and then we use it. So I'd like to put it on the agenda with the title, the time to consider owning its own accounting software.
Would you put it in new business?
Yes.
5,
5G?
no,
EF,
EFG.
and I want to make sure we had time to cover it. I hope that we do. So with this will be discussion.
Yeah, we kind of decided, we've got a really full agenda. We always have a problem, getting everything done. But, we've got the 3 months of financials, and then we need to talk about, the town road, we have, and what that presentation is gonna be. So, I think we might have time to do it, but it should be more like we outline the parameters and then ask the management company to come back
That's, if okay,
at a later date.
we need a motion to put it on the agenda. Second, so we-
I'll make the motion.
Okay, adding the discussion item on district only,
Town
is
owning roads.
time, not the district, time, owning the
Own software.
accounting system software. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Cheryl. Any discussion?
Yes, please. Let's define town-only roads.
No, we're not,
No, we're not talking about roads right
no, we're talking about adding this item.
Adding
Yeah.
this-
agenda, we're just on the agenda.
On the
right
agenda.
now.
We are not on the,
Okay.
we're not on the, yeah. 10, we are considering adding the item to consider having the time to own its own accounting system software. So
Okay.
it has been seconded and moved.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Okay.
Seeing none, all those in favor, saying aye?
now.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Okay, back to the approval of agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Cheryl, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Virginia. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have the same issue with regard that I had the last time, and that is that if what I would like for us to do, if we can, is when we start covering the financials, combine the discussion in B, C, and D, because everything is year to date. And if we have to go over, we could make motions to approve each month, if we want to, but it's all year to date. And so we don't really need to go through each month, and especially since when you look at the I mean, whatever comments I have to make regarding the financials, the December financials are all cumulative, and you can look at the ledger, and everything's there for all the months, so you really can see the big picture.
So what do you want to do with the agenda?
I just want to combine for discussion, B, C, and D.
But B and A and B are just submission of revised.
Oh.
Those
That's
are,
for your review.
yeah, it's
Oh,
just for
okay,
your
so combine
review. You could
C,
combine
C.
C and D.
C and D, yes, then we'll combine C and D, okay.
Okay. Elise have a amended motion to combine C and D.
I'll second.
Second by Cheryl. Any discussion? All those in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So, now we have the modified agenda to combine C and D. Any other discussion? Seeing none, on the main motion to recommend, to approve the agenda, all those in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, 5-0. Okay. Item number 2A, approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minute? You want to do it on two separate motion or combined one? Any preference?
I'd be fine with combining. I'll make the motion that we approve October and November,
Okay,
and we'll see if anybody has any changes.
okay, we have a motion by Liz, we have a second,
I'll second.
second by Cheryl.
I see no reason.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries 5-0. Presentation, none. Old business, none and none.
Oh, no, we
Wait a
didn't
second,
approve
wait a
it.
second.
We're gonna, that was just a motion to approve, we need to discuss the motion. Right?
We just,
We made a motion to approve the minutes, and then now we need to discuss that. But then we shouldn't. I
we
thought
have
were-
voted on it.
Okay, did we?
I didn't vote on it.
Yeah, I don't think people thought they were voting on the minutes.
Okay, I thought we voted on it.
I thought they did.
They did, we did.
I think we did, but I
Okay,
don't.
let's bring it back for reconsider it. Have a motion to reconsider the minutes.
Yeah,
It is reconsider.
Yeah, we'll reconsider
A motion
the
to,
minutes.
second to reconsider.
I'll second.
Second by Cheryl. Now the minute is reopened. Discussion,
Got a comment.
okay?
On the October minutes, I vaguely remember, and I could be wrong, I could be right, it's hard to say.
What page is it?
When we're-
Okay.
Page 4.
what page are you on?
I'm
Page
on
5.
Page 5 and 6.
Okay.
That when we talked about Collecting Canal Road
Mm-hmm.
and the cost thereof, I was talking about what the cost would be for a limited stretch of Collecting Canal, and I think at least supported that. And we were only gonna do that based on the time element of when the college was under construction. In other words, it might not start until after 5 years, whenever the college starts to be constructed. And then I was talking about the traffic problem on Collecting Canal between A and D, and that is a whole lot different than paving all of Collecting Canal. Because we're talking about the explicit traffic problem along that stretch of the road.
So how do you, what do you,
And
I
plus,
don't remember
Can
that.
I interject for a
Well,
minute? Because.
let me finish just a
Okay.
second, then you can say whatever you want
Okay.
to say. Because a lot of that portion of that road is already paved and already has speed bumps on it.
Mhm.
So you don't have to pave it again.
Right.
So the cost of doing just Collecting Canal, of which here again that Virginia Standish brought up, is the fact that she wanted to know why wasn't the south side of the canal participating. Well, it's a different kettle of fish. It's only the people on the north side. So consequently, I think that we need to relook at that and it would sort of be like the people in Bismarck, South Dakota, deciding that they don't want to have to pay for Hurricane Sandy that went up through and tore New Jersey and New York up. Hey, folks, it's a part of the United States. Well, Collecting Canal is a part of Waxahachie Groves. And we aren't looking to spend $1.8 million on the entire road. I'm just talking about a portion of that road. Yes.
Can I just, on the
Thank you.
minutes, okay?
Yes.
We had two different meetings. The October meeting is where we discussed, we were talking about who gets assessed. But if you look on page 10 of page 249 under the November minutes, where each of you were giving your opinions, if you come all the way down before item C, that paragraph right there, it said,
Okay.
Member Johnson advised that he believes that resurfacing of Collecting now should be placed on the same timeline as a college and then only contain certain sections that should be surfaced. So that discussion of yours happened in the November meeting, not
Okay.
the October. I hope that resolves it. And the 1.8 is the whole CIP program. Collecting Canal was budgeted by the town council for $973,000. So the 1.8 isn't for Collecting Canal, it's all the projects. But as far as the minutes, you did discuss that, but you discussed it in the November
Okay.
meeting, okay?
Sorry, I don't have a set of minutes. I've got it here. It
It's
is
okay,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
So you're okay? All right.
Any other comments for the minutes? Jim?
Nope.
Yes, no?
No,
Okay, let's vote on it. Are we did vote on it?
we did vote on it.
Yeah, we vote on it. No, but we reopen it.
So now,
You have to
re-vote
Let's go again.
okay, I move,
You-
make the motion that the
you
minutes
already-
be approved.
Okay. I think we already, we open it now, we just have to call the motion.
Okay.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Zero. Motion carries.
Is that both sets? Is that both sets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Item number 5, new business. So this is a submission for the committee to review. Right? Mark?
A, and
We
B.
have to open.
None. Get none. All business we get none.
A and B is just for the edification of committee and citizens.
Yeah, I just, I don't know if you're planning on, are we ready to discuss these
Oh.
together, or?
Now, this is for the submission of the FI
Okay,
September and October. Do we have any questions on those? Because-
yeah, I do on A.
Okay, why don't we one by one?
Okay,
What page are you on?
I'm on page 12.
12? Okay, go ahead, Denise.
Okay, 12, the only thing, that I was saying here is, it looks kind of funny because we don't have any numbers under contract services expenditure. So if we're gonna turn that in without that, why don't you just take everything off and? Oh, you don't have it?
Sorry.
We eliminated the expenditures year to
Those
date.
didn't change.
They didn't change from the one you did get.
Okay, then maybe we should just, are you gonna put this in the council agenda pack?
No.
No, it's just for us?
Yes.
Okay, then that's fine, yeah, all right, then I'm fine with it.
I noticed you had a note on the other side.
Here's my note. Did I have another, that was just, that's something else, I'll talk about that later when we get into, that was just my own notes.
Any other comment, discussion?
Right?
Okay, so that takes care of 5A. What about B?
I don't have any,
This was the October financial.
yeah, we've
sure.
already seen that. Right.
Everybody happy with that?
Yeah,
So this is a resubmission. We don't need a motion, right?
no,
Okay, let's move on to item number 5C, which
C and D for
also
combining.
includes,
We're combining those.
November, December. Okay, let's have a motion and second before we discuss it.
Motion to approve November and December.
We have a motion by Liz, we have a second,
I'll second.
second by Cheryl. Okay, discussion. And also on the record, I appreciate whether you put the page number on the items. It helps a lot. That's when we have a agenda.
May I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Go ahead. Okay.
We're looked at as trying to control the finances of Loxahatchee, the citizens of Loxahatchee Grove. How many additional hours did it take to compile this record? In other words, what I'm saying is that I think if whoever has got the floor is saying, I'm looking at page number such and such, and let the rest of the committee members just find that page, rather than the amount of hours it took to produce this documentation. We might be, you know, tail might be wagging the dog rather than the other way around. How long did it take to compile this?
Compile what specifically?
They're going back and putting on the
Entire
page numbers.
agenda or the?
No, just going back and collating all the page numbers
Oh,
on
I don't think it took Pearl all that long. Pearl, what's your guess?
What-
2 weeks?
Is it an automatic sort, does the program automatically sort it?
No, I had to do it manually.
Maybe.
Normally,
It does the
it would have
number.
only taken a few minutes, but this was a different agenda because we had so many financial reports, and I wanted to make sure I put the page number for each specific report. So normally, we just approved 1 month, so it would have been, but this did take a little bit longer, but the
Okay.
agenda was a
About a
little
week.
different.
About a
No, it
week.
didn't. It took me a couple of
Can I,
hours.
is a question
Yes.
related to putting the page number on here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, I do it all the time. It takes me, if I have to do it, 2 minutes.
The thing is, when I did it, when I convert it to a PDF, then it gives me the numbers. So then I have to go into the Word agenda and put the new numbers. And then I gotta remove it from the PDF and then put the new one in. And then I didn't catch Elise's packet had come in for her PowerPoint. And then I had to go add it, so it changed all the numbers. Every time I add something, it would change numbers, but this is
It's about
not,
a week.
this, no.
I think it's on record. I
That's the
think-
number Bill,
I
I
think
think.
Mr. Pugh is
It's not, it
joking.
didn't
I think
take,
he paid attention. Let's put it this way, table of content is very important for a thick document. It will facilitate.
Right, but I was just looking at how thick it was and the amount of man hours it would have cost us to have that.
It's a late
That's all.
hour. It's a late hour.
it was a
usually-
250-page packet, which is a big packet, for the
Yeah.
finance. It doesn't
Okay.
happen all the time.
All right, thank you.
And also to facilitate readers, if you do a table of content, it's very hard to follow. And,
Yeah.
people even put index at the end, so I think sometimes it's just like to make it more user-friendly. If it take 2 weeks, I think that we have to have a new mention from the
I didn't say 2. 1.
No, 1 week, 1 week. Then we need
Just
to
to
have,
put the page
we just need
numbers
to
that
have
way.
half of the new mention from them.
No. it's all
Okay.
done.
With enough jokes, you guys. Any other question, comments?
Okay, what
I think
related
we-
to what?
I mean, with the both of the financial for November and December.
Yeah, okay, so. I've got a couple of things that I want to talk about. And they all relate to planning and zoning.
Okay.
And, they're, where's the page? I found it in here. Page 195.
Go ahead, Ms.
Okay. We're back to where, this, if you look at account in the middle, 515, it says professional services, that's professional services planning and zoning, that's in planning and zoning. And the 514, which is above it, that's legal. And so, okay, and then we have another account that says town management services, other. And then we have a planning and zoning contract account, and then we have cost recovery. Now, I believe that one of those accounts, which is the one that has the budget of $70,000 some dollars, was specifically to pay for Braden, right? Or the planning consultant.
Planning.
Okay, so what we've got, and that charge is 6858, you can see it. We've paid 3 months of the planning consultant, but they're in 2 different accounts. If you look at the ledger, on that page, you see professional services planning and zoning, we paid 6586 in November, and then we paid again in December 6586, but October's got booked to the next account, which is the 6586 went into other services. So we're splitting out the cost for that consultant, and they need to be all in one
No,
account.
that's exactly what you said.
Page 195, did you find it? You see what I'm saying, Pearl?
It doesn't look like.
This is our work authorization, the
Which one
professional
is the work?
services. Professional services, the account ending in 515310.
Mm-hmm.
See where it says ULD comp plan CIE? This is where we charge
Work authorization.
work authorizations. but
Right.
I do recognize that there is,
But how can they be this, are you saying that there was a work authorization for 6?
no, I'm sorry.
There couldn't
There
be.
is 2 charges, you're absolutely right. That
Yeah.
should be under other services. Those will
Right.
have to be moved.
Okay, so those need to be moved.
Yes.
That's my first point, is get everything in the right account.
Okay.
Okay, now, so now we're gonna have 2 planning and zoning accounts, one of which you have, I wanna look at what's in professional services planning and zoning, and what is in planning and zoning contract.
Well, professional service under 514, those are Mike Cirillo
That's
charges.
legal. 514 is legal,
Okay.
right? 515.
Okay, under professional service on 515310, those are the cost recovery accounts.
No, they're not cost recovery. These
Yes,
are, cost recovery is 515.
No, I'm talking about work authorizations, I'm sorry. They're
These are
cost
the work-
recovery to us, they're work authorizations. If
It's
you
town initiated, right?
These-
Town initiated work authorizations.
Those,
and,
yes, and then the other services is our charges for planning, and then the one that says planning and zoning contract, those are charges that are done by Jim Fleshman that are not part of the cost recovery, those are done where the town initiated.
So if Jim Fleischman does it, we're putting it in 515 and there's 5. The town does it, we're putting it in.
Yes, but Jim's is in 515343. This planning and zoning contract, that is where those are costs, those are Jim Fleshman charges that are not part of cost recovery, that the town, like on Minto,
Okay.
or anything that's not part of the cost recovery, those where Jim's bills go. Now,
Wait, I'm confused. Because are you saying that all the charges in 515310 are for Underwood Management?
no, those are
Who are the-
Jim.
Jeff, that's what I thought.
Those are, but part of these professional services that would include our work authorizations as well. On the planning and zoning contract,
Right,
even though you see a work authorization for 406,
right.
Jim submitted the charge that the town had asked him to do some work on Minto, and he submitted it as a work authorization instead of his just regular billing to the town, and I paid it
I saw that.
I paid it myself as an
Why?
accident.
By accident.
By accident, and then the
Okay.
town reimbursed me.
Okay.
So they've got
There were,
charged,
there were 2 charges that were kind
Yeah.
of irregular,
Yeah.
both to Jim. One was Highland Dunes,
yes.
and one was the Minto, where
Right.
it didn't fall into a
Right.
work authorization, and and it didn't fall into a cost recovery.
That's exactly right. And what I did was I paid it.
So basically what we're saying, it sounds like the 406 needs to go up to planning and zoning. I don't understand, I still don't understand what we're putting in planning and zoning contract and why we have that account, because it sounds like,
Because that's the 20,000 the council,
that's
the 20,000 the council budgets for Jim Fleshman charges that are not part of the cost recovery. Those are done by the town council, directs him to do special
so
projects.
that's Jim Fleischman's
Yes, ma'am.
special project.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
what that is, okay. And then, the planning and zoning work is also could be Jim, how do you know if it's supposed to go to the 20 or if it's supposed to go to the,
If it's work that we do, it's pretty easy. If the commission said go do it, on work authorization, we charge it off. Cost recovery, we charge Jim into that. We charge ours into the other services.
The planning contract with the management company is based upon the day-to-day planning services that you get.
Nothing.
right, I know that, I know.
Work
but I'm just-
authorizations are up and above that.
What I'm trying to, right, and the work authorizations should be for council approved or council
Work
initiated
right now
that
for
they
one
plan
process.
on, and that's the way it is, okay? But then there's a separate I don't understand why we have a separate $20,000 and then, you know, this
Well, as
budget.
Perla indicated, there are some times when council decides to take on projects that they either haven't allocated to Underwood Management under a work authorization, but they hand it off to Jim Fleischman as the town's planning consultant. So that's not a cost recovery, and it's not under the auspices of the management company, so therefore it's a separate charge.
I'm not getting it.
And Elise and Jim Fleshman
Am I
works,
the only one that's
and
not-
Jim Fleshman
Yes,
works
he is.
for us
Yeah,
as
I
well. So as part of our work authorizations, Jim bills me and through the company, and we pay, and Jim does some of those services for our work authorizations.
Oh.
So while you might see
It
that
would
in
show up
310, but
So you're billing $6,000 and then you're paying.
no, that was an error. That one, it should have been under other services. That's our normal,
Those two belong down under 340.
What's the $6,000?
is what we charge for planning services. It's a $75,000 contract a year for planning and zoning services that the company provides to the town every year.
Okay,
It's not for Braden.
it's
It's for everything.
For the
Jim-
town, for any town services that Underwood Management provides, and these are paid for by the town, and it would be anything,
Remember, it's the only service that the town does directly.
Let me ask you a question.
Planning and
Our-
zoning is the
our
only service that
contract-
they've taken on specifically within the town.
Our contract is two parts. We get paid a monthly
Right.
amount for the management,
Right.
and then we get, and it's 20 whatever thousand a month. Those
Mm-hmm.
the 200, and then we have, remember when they amended our contract to include planning services for 75,000, that's 6,000 whatever
Right, I
is the
understand
monthly
that.
charge.
okay.
That was an error right there. Those
Yeah.
two should have been
I know.
looked to that.
She's-
I'm clear on that.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get my hand around, what are the planning services that you provide under other services? I mean, it's not necessary, I mean, what does,
The day-to-day.
what's the
It's the
$6,000?
day-to-day.
Somebody work-
Give me an example of
Look,
day-to-day.
okay, look.
Um,
Planning and zoning services are the only services that the town offers directly. It's not out by a vendor. Now, if you want to say
Right.
under us, okay, we're the ultimate vendor, I guess, we're the general vendor.
I just
But-
want to define it, so
but
we know.
That's so that we have coverage every single day, every hour while we're open on planning and zoning. That's the
So that if
review.
somebody comes into town, there's a planner there that.
Exactly.
can
Talk to
advise
them about their zoning, any issue they have. It's the review of business tax receipts, building permits.
Which account number is this specifically?
It's 515-340.
515-340.
I mean,
000, okay,
All right,
and so we're,
it's a good number to know.
yeah, it's a lot of money, and what these people
No,
are.
time out. I would tell you it's not a lot of money. I hear that so often.
Contract it out.
Do you realize that you're paying us 40-some bucks an hour to do that? I guarantee you, go out there and
Oh,
find
no,
somebody.
I'm not questioning.
Well, I know, but I get a little sensitive when I
No.
start hearing,
Okay.
that's a lot of money, you
all
know.
right,
At
I
least
just said it was a good number
90%
to
of the
know.
traffic that comes into town hall is to apply for a business tax receipt. We have to sign off on,
Okay.
this town has to sign off on every building permit, every business tax receipt,
well, this
the
is what I
manure
need to-
hauling, and everything else. 90% of our traffic is people coming in, sometimes 15, 20 a day, lien cert, everything that
Okay.
has to do with the zoning function, whether they need a zoning confirmation letter.
And you are collecting a fee to offset that.
We
Some of
collect
it.
lots of fees to offset that.
Right,
And this
Okay.
contract has been in place since we took over 6 months into our contract 3 years ago. The council authorized this as part of our annual contract.
okay, so.
We
what
just split it up under 2 different accounts.
Yeah, I'm not questioning, I just want to know what it's for and try to understand why, what type of work is being covered under that, okay, so, and I understand
And I
that
just
now.
wanted to make the
It's
point,
the
you're actually getting a
day-to-day-
very good rate.
Oh, I'm sure we are, and it was approved by the council, and they had the opportunity to bid it out, and they elected, you to do it, which I'm fine with, and I wasn't in any way being critical of that. I just think that I want to understand, we need to be very clear about what types of services it is that the town, and so now I understand, it's the zoning confirmations. and we
Yes,
do
it's the one service. when you-
Partially offset that
In
with.
2011, you amended an interlocal agreement you had with the county.
Yeah,
The county was doing all of it.
right,
You amended it before we got on board to basically take over planning and zoning, and building was kept by the county.
okay,
So that was, and at that time, when we went to council, we said, you've taken on a service now, even though you want to be a contract city, what do you want to do?
Okay.
We can do it for you, or you can go out to another vendor. But if you go out to another vendor, you're going to pay a lot more money.
Or you can go to
Okay.
the county.
now, the
Or the
professional.
county, yeah.
So
Or
the-
They'll do it.
The professional services planning and zoning, the 310 account, let me see if I can state what that is for. That is for special projects that are, I would call it town-initiated planning and zoning functions, right? Is that correct? More or less?
Yeah, I think we got some engineering in there, that's what it looks like there's some engineering.
Let me ask a question.
Well, you had Sidar.
Yeah,
We have Sedor.
yeah.
Yeah, Sidar probably should go to, since that was for
Okay.
maintenance.
Well, that was
Ken has
part
a
of a work, if we
Ken
were doing a work
has a
authorization, that's where that falls into place. So after the council adopted our contracts, then it started with the hay sales. And that was a special project, so they did a work authorization. Then
Right.
they did the ULDC, and that was
Right.
another work authorization. And they did about $60,000 worth of work authorizations, and that's where that falls into.
Right.
Well, we need to take a look at it, because what's in Cirillo's, and I think what's in Cirillo's and what's in the professional are reversed. Cirillo had the 3,000, Jim had the 781, but we have the 781 under Cirillo and the 3,000 under the professional. I think that may be what's throwing them off.
That's, yeah, which one, what are you saying, Mark?
Okay, if you look under 515, 310,
Uh-huh,
if you go halfway down, you'll see Highland Dunes PUD,
yeah,
and you'll see it's $3,248.
Yeah.
That's actually Cirillo.
that should go to
Jim,
Sherman.
this is Jim's. and I think maybe
That
we
looks
would-
strange to me, okay.
Put Jim in here, not Cirillo.
Highland Dunes PUD needs to move up to legal. Okay, thank you, that's making more sense, because I couldn't get, my head around why we, okay. And then, what about the, all right, so we have ULDC, we have,
2014 special law.
that's for the legal work, right? Yeah, why
It's
do
only
we,
5550, I'm just curious.
no, it's, hard for me to tell.
I'm sorry,
It's
Eugene,
just a
which one
small
was that?
amount.
Yeah.
Or-
Oh, the
Sorry.
214, that was probably payment, what was that? Yeah.
Special warrant, it's only $55,
It's
but
not,
still.
yeah. What about Minto, does that need to go up there too?
Well, see, again, unless this is one of those things that the town asked them.
Where is it budget? Where is it budget listed for these Highland Dunes?
Page 166.
I don't know if there,
166?
what is the report for this? I'll tell you how much we spent.
There's not a budget for
I
that.
think that things just happen, I don't think there's a budget.
Well,
There is
It's
a
something,
budget.
well, I
I'm in
mean,
trouble with
There's a
you.
budget.
no, is there a budget not to exceed?
No, no,
Okay, but-
what apparently happened, was,
If you go to, on the ledger for that month, go over to where we pay the expenses for the month. under expense detail. And it will list out what Gore and Chertoff was charged for. And if you come down here, look for the account numbers,
Page 173.
173 and 174. I keep looking for account numbers right here.
So these are all legal,
So they should be in legal, right?
Well, wait a minute, I see
We
some of
didn't
these.
necessarily put them in the.
I can't find the 800, but maybe it's in the early.
See this number right here? That was for land use and zone change.
Those were, yeah, those were the last.
So you have to go back to November detail.
They just,
Yeah, here it is, Highland Dunes, that's legal. That's on page 134. Highland Dunes was page 4, so that needs to be moved up to legal, right? And
I wouldn't move it up to legal because the intent is that you're discussing planning issues relative, not really, if you want to put it under legal, we'll
I
have to
don't.
reclassify it.
I just want to put it where the budget is for it, that's all.
there's no budget
There's
for
no
Highland
budget for
Dunes.
that.
No, but what was the $20,000 that the council authorized?
Planning
for?
and zoning contract is what you've had it since this budget line item, we didn't change the title of it. And what the town had been previously charging that was charges from land research management for all items that were not cost recovery but had to do with planning and zoning.
Okay, well,
But we've expanded.
I'm fine with that, and I think that's clear, but I'm just trying to get a clear definition of what we're putting in what line, make sure that the budget's lines match up. So those are legal expenses that are being charged to planning and zoning because that's where the budget is, right? I mean,
It was not intended to be part of their legal when it was originally adopted.
okay, but, and
And it's
that's,
more related to the issue of discussing the memento and the other project that's going to impact the town.
okay.
If we can reclassify, I don't have a problem with classifying, we're trying to keep like topics together.
I just want to make sure that we know what the rationale is and that we're consistent, and that we're doing it, putting it where we're budgeted for, but that's fine.
At the end of the day, if we spread it out, you're never gonna have an idea of how much you spent for Minto or Highland Dunes. The conferences between Jim and the attorney are all about Highland Dunes and Minto, and it's not that it's a legal matter because the attorney's filing a suit or anything. It's they're strategizing the plan and putting together the informational packets
And the argument.
and arguments.
Okay.
And so in that sense, it's a planning and zoning, or planning document, much more than,
And I think the council instructed the attorney to do whatever is necessary to put forth an argument to defeat both of those projects, or to at least
Okay.
somehow thwart.
And when it was first done, there was no line item
They didn't
for it,
say
there
what-
was
there was no
no
budget for it.
limitation,
I mean, I'm fine with that, I just wanted to understand what it was for, and what we were
Do we
paying
need to
for.
have clarification for future items?
and further, at least the council, or Mike asked the council to authorize him to give work authorizations to Jim for Minto. So these charges, while some of it comes from Mike and some of it comes from Jim,
That's
that's all.
Now, question, what about Drysdale? Why is Drysdale on the income statement for her comp plan amendment? We've got $2,300 that we paid for Drysdale, and she got a zoning change, right, or land use change?
not yet,
Not yet.
not yet,
She did not get it yet.
not yet. Where do you see that? I'm sorry, what page?
Well, I'm just questioning why that shouldn't be in cost recovery. 515343, page
Okay.
195.
That's me.
That should be cost recovery.
Ms.
It should be a
Drysdale,
cost.
It should be.
when
Thank
Ms.
you.
when Ms.
And-
Drysdale brings in the check for the cost recovered, then I'll reverse those. Right now, I can't charge it to her cost recovery account because it hasn't been set up yet. But there's the charge of the 2,300, those are charges from land research management for the planning and zoning, and there's a new one for advertising that we're gonna pay next month. As soon as the cost recovery, I can charge it to that
So
account.
have you invoiced her for that? You've invoiced her
We
for it?
called her and she's to bring in, the money.
Prior to,
We're not, until it's finalized.
She's not going further.
It's nothing's going through until they haven't approved anything, it hasn't gone to the council yet. But these are the preliminary charges, even the advertising for the planning and zoning. As Soon as she brings in the check, I can set up the cost recovery account and then I'll reverse those entries and charge it to that cost recovery.
She's only had first reading, she hasn't had second reading.
is there a second reading? We're gonna have a second reading?
Both, yeah.
So, I mean, here's where, where I think all this ties together, because we've still, I mean, we look at the balance sheet, we've still got people that haven't paid. And we have a policy of, we're supposed to be collecting so that the taxpayers, don't actually pay. 176.
Well, I think that FMMT or whatever is the only one that's outstanding. Big Dog has already paid their current.
Big Dog is current now?
Yes.
And
Okay.
everybody else is supposed to
What's
pay.
FMM one LLC?
That is the one that is outstanding, and I've been back and forth with that.
I'm gonna file a lien, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna file a lien against that property
Okay, you don't
Where is that property located?
on Oak
Right,
Southern
it's in
Boulevard.
between, yeah, it's in between the Palms Plaza and Gary Morello's properties, if you know where Gary's properties are, between Sea Road.
Yeah.
And then we have Palm Beach State, which is a minus, and then we have Day.
Well, Palm Beach State has promised to pay, and they haven't paid yet, though, right?
They're waiting for the outcome of the court proceeding. And the Day property, that's been in limbo since they filed their lawsuit.
Okay, the only comment I would want to make is that we need to make sure that when someone comes before the council for a land use change, that they're current. And,
What about the ones that the council are approving regardless, and they don't charge them anything?
well, if the council is going to, the council can, if they feel something's of general benefit, then they're gonna,
I believe what he's speaking to, Elise, and as a resident, I take personal offense to it, especially when Mr. Jerrio, and I will say it is Mr. Jerrio that I've seen, coddles individual residents and gives them special treatment and forces things along without an invoice being billed for it. But, other people are paying. I don't understand that concept.
The council several months ago asked the legal and us not to bring anything forward for cost recovery for their consideration unless they're current. The problem that Mike Cirillo pointed out at that meeting was if they were current, they were flush, but just the fact that we're discussing it at this meeting is incurring legal expenses. So how do we determine if they're current? Because they could have been with a zero balance, but as a result of the meeting, in the meeting, it's at $185 an hour Mr. Cirillo's charging, and that would be part of the cost recovery. But
See, they're incurring charges that night as they're getting the
Okay,
final
okay,
approval.
yes.
So the issue will be probably at some point, if you really want to address that issue so that we don't have a future project in arrears, we are going to have to put some condition or something in the ordinance adopting that they will have to make good on all changes or null and void.
well, I think,
And I don't know if that's legal, we'll have to look at that.
Yeah.
Probably not, but,
relative to what Virginia said, if we're treating people, if we're doing some people free and charging others, that should not happen unless the council approves of it. One council person doesn't have the authority to waive charges for anybody. It has to go before the council. And then you guys do what the council wants. So I don't know how that
Not to speak for
happened.
my friend Mr. Underwood here, but I think the point he's trying to get across is once you start to have a system where you just can't give people breaks. If you're gonna charge,
Right,
charge everybody.
yeah, I'm 100% behind
Otherwise,
that.
you jeopardize your whole system.
Right,
That was the point that I was
That's
making
the
a
point.
long time
that's the
ago.
point I've been trying to make every
Precisely.
meeting. You know, that we've got to make sure that we have a policy and that everybody is treated the same. And if there's an exception to be made, it needs to go to the council and the whole council needs to vote on it. Not just, I mean, one person, I don't think.
Well, I think the council votes on it and they approve those things.
Okay, well,
I'm not
if they
saying
approve
that,
it,
but
then we
maybe
don't-
they need to consider a policy where,
Or perhaps the attorney needs to offer them better advice, or counsel is what my suggestion would be. Because they may be getting themselves into a bit of hot water legally.
Well,
Just offering that input from the accounting perspective.
I want to know what the solution is. You know, that's what I want to know, is how do we fix it, not what happened to it.
I mean, either you're full cost recovery or you're not. If you want cost recovery, you know, your ordinance, you should,
Okay.
everybody should have to do cost recovery.
Yeah.
Once you start to give somebody a break because they know somebody or something else, that jeopardizes your whole
So we're
program.
recommending,
Opens you up to the, litigation.
and we should be on full cost recovery, I think, you know, I don't know how everybody else feels.
That was
but-
our recommendation, was it not?
Yes. All right, so then we're gonna need to talk to the council about full cost recovery. That's the answer.
Perhaps you need to emphasize it, though. Maybe you might want to address it.
I
you know,
will.
And emphasize
I'll do
what we
it. I mean,
need.
I'll do the
Yes.
presentation and we can talk
Well,
about it.
no, but put it in writing like we talked about.
Yeah.
Just
we'll
a caution,
do
the
that.
last time you did that, I think the council missed the point, but they did go off on the accounting exercise as opposed to the issue, is it right to give somebody a break versus making somebody else pay? I mean, you're talking the equity.
Well, I
issue.
think we need to put up, you know, we need to put that out there. Are we on full cost recovery or aren't we? And if we are, then we need, you know,
But it's we're preaching the equity and fairness of the whole program. is what we're
I'm a
saying.
taxpayer and I don't want to pay for anybody else's land use change. If they have their land use change, why should I pay for it? Why should Virginia or Ken or, you know, they're getting an improved value on their property. Now, you know, and so we should be on full cost recovery. And I just don't understand why we're not. I mean, I'm confused about that, but, you know, if we need to talk about it some more, then let's talk about it some more.
We have an item on old business and the cost recovery fees
The
matter.
fee
We talked
schedule.
about this for a long time, so I
I'm
think.
totally supportive and in favor of a fee schedule, and when somebody walks in the door, we tell them how much it's gonna be, and they pay, and we don't do the service until they pay their fee for that service.
Well, perhaps we need a login. Do we have a login system of services provided? Do we have an accountability system of what services are being provided to which residents, whether it's free or not?
Well, we do under general government, I mean, technically.
Thought I'd ask.
What?
My work is documented all day long, so I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Well, it's not a matter of very
Well, we
long,
have-
you just have to have some record of it.
We have a lot
Exactly.
of, no, but we have
No,
other
that's called a log.
towns.
When you
Understood.
submit a request for planning and zoning, when you submit a request for anything of your time, it needs to be logged.
That was that discussion we had some time ago. There's questions that come in relative
Yeah.
to planning and zoning. And the issue is, well, if you want to come in the door, it's $25.
Right.
If you ask a question, that's
That's
$50.
that's not the,
I'm
no,
just,
no,
no,
if
I'm
we-
being
that's not,
sarcastic.
If we give you an answer, it's $100.
no.
And so you can come in and
For
ask
correct
one
answer.
question.
No,
it's $20.
I'm not talking about the fee, I'm talking
If
about.
you say good morning, that's $10.
documented.
That's not the role and the function of government. We're here to provide a service to the citizens. Answering questions is not a cost recoverable item.
No,
We
no,
have
I
to-
am saying, what I am saying is, when something is a cost recovery issue, it's typically land related, is it
General
not?
people walking in.
Okay. When you do something based on a piece of land, you have to put a submittal in writing. Typically, you must ask, put
Everybody.
it on a piece of paper, what you are asking,
That's part of it.
what
Here's
you're
the
doing.
difference, we don't do that because we are providing the service in-house. Most of the cost recovery falls under the consultant, and that's Jim Fleischer. It's Jim's charges, it's Mike Cirillo's charges. If we had to get the engineer involved, it would be the engineer's charges.
And legal
We
advertising.
we would not charge that because we're doing the services in-house on a day-to-day basis.
Well, we ought to look at changing that. And yet they're charging for it.
There's two different types of cost recovery.
But they're
When we're
not coming in
talking
with an application.
When we're talking about companies that come in, whether it's the college, whether it's the commons, whether it's a big company, it doesn't matter what number you give them. Cost recovery, they write the check right there. The problem is the citizens and cost recovery. The citizens come in and ask questions. The role of our job is to answer their questions, not to charge them to answer a question. That's what we're there for, to provide the service. Our citizens are the ones that can't come up with a $25,000 check. And in this town, how many times have we heard it? We have taxpayers in Loxahatchee. The residents that live here there's a different consideration for them versus landowners that pay property but they don't live in town. I'm not saying that we make differences, but when the residents come in to change the zoning on their property and you say that'll be $10,000, most of Loxahatchee's residents don't have $10,000. Some of these zoning requests,
Then maybe they shouldn't change the zoning.
but some of those zoning requests, they're still stuck with the county zoning, so when the town took over, they didn't make those changes, and so they have a county zoning on a city property, and we've tried to do some of them administratively because the town council should have changed those zonings at the time they did
If the
that.
town made a mistake, then the town should pay for it.
Not, some of them the citizens have put up the money, some of them, the town council has done the change and it has been done administratively. But if we're trying to help the citizens, there's gotta be, they don't have $25,000 to make some corrections that aren't a big deal.
If I can, let me give the committee an example of some of the kind of stuff we face and what we deal with, and then, for your edification. We have probably spent now, total of 5 to 7 hours of staff time on an issue involving 3 property owners on a road off of E Road, which is a 20-acre parcel that was divided 10 acres on the north side, 2 5-acre tracts on the south side.
What road is this?
Off of E Road. Okay? When it was sold, what ended up happening is, obviously, you had an easement on the north side, you had an easement on the south side, 10 feet
For the
each
drive.
side to create the roadway. Okay, the properties turn over, whoever put the roadway in, it deviated way off the 20-foot
Roadway or
easement.
the driveway?
Roadway, driveway,
Now,
whatever you
is
want
it
to
a
call it.
town road or is it
It's
a shared
It's a
road?
town, it's considered a town road.
Okay.
All right? Now the right-of-way is on, or the roadway is on 2 of the property owners' property, for the most part. The brunt of it, there's just a little bit, they're all fighting. They're trying to figure out what to do. Who do they come to? They come to the town.
Well, then that's gonna be something I guess the town would have to, get involved in.
And that's some of the day-to-day stuff, which it has implications in zoning, and we get involved trying to work out, we try to help them. But in most cases, because the town doesn't own the easements, they're easements on private property, we have to get them to get together and try to work it out amongst themselves, and we will assist them and help them with a solution.
So it's their ingress and egress you're referring to on their
Yes.
private property, technically not a road.
Which is technically a town, well, town road, not town road, I'm not going down
Yes,
that.
that's not
I'm just
right.
telling you, those are the kind of things that will eat up large amounts of our time.
Let's handle this in a more systematic way. I think we go farther and farther away, and then we even have a audience want to say something. Sorry, let's finish the discussion here. I'm not trying to ignore you. The discussion started from Elise's questioning on whether or not we should pay and how we pay our lawyer and our land planner for projects which were either legitimately under cost recovery system or something were initiated by somebody sitting on the council. Now, I think we better think about how to have a system to address, to make sure things are being dealt with on an equitable manner, equitably. And I think that's focused on that concept. I think that will be much more clear. Virginia talked about a council member brought in something which happened to be the fees were waived. Was it right or wrong?
No, not specifically waived, they're just, a great deal of favoritism is placed on pushing things along quickly. May or may not, it involves
Okay.
a financial burden on the town.
I think that's something the town has to deal with it, because political pressure exists everywhere. It's your preference how to deal with that particular situation. We are not trying to tell you, you don't do it, you do it.
But the $20,000 that was budgeted, that Perla was trying to tell you about earlier for Jim
It's related to
Fleischman,
that.
those are the kind of things that
Okay.
are assigned to Jim Fleischman.
Okay, but that is a consequence of the appearance of the favoritism that we don't know. I think it's a perception that you have to handle for political influence on your part. That's how we pay big bucks for. We let you handle it. I think that why don't we focus on how we're going to manage it if we don't have a process? Let's develop a process.
Let's,
And
let me ask a question as soon as you finish.
you want to ask me on one dinner?
On what you're talking about?
Okay, you have a question?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
okay. Your management firm deals with many other municipalities, correct?
Lots of experience.
Okay. How do they handle it? In other words, this is a learning process for
Right.
us. You know, we're trying to figure out what's the most fair and equitable way to regain the cost so that our citizens aren't paying the cost. So how do other municipalities handle it?
In one municipality, cost recovery began if they were doing a development of regional impact. They hit a DRI level, which was a large basically a larger project than a 5-acre lot. If it was in town and it was Jane, okay, run it through, maybe you have to pay the hard costs. Hard cost being advertising or if there's a legal fee. But the town or city absorbed everything else. That is not outside the norm. I've not run into any city that does an absolute cost recovery on every item. You've had experience in other states even.
What happened was, there is a trend, and cost recovery has become the favorite of governments because truly what was happening in the past was government was subsidizing development.
Right.
They have a fee schedule, like you're asking about, but once they charge, let's say somebody was doing a variance and they charged $2,000. And let's say it was very controversial and it actually costed the municipality $10,000. They weren't charging cost recovery. The $2,000 covered it. Everything else was the taxpayer covering the salaries and the
Right.
benefits of the employees. Then some cities said, well, wait a minute, we have to do a better job of recovering the costs and not subsidizing development. And some cities have gone to cost recovery. But I agree with Bill, I don't know too many that fully cover everything. And general government can never be covered. The issue of people coming in and asking you a zoning question or a planning question, their staffs cover that. They don't, now they try to, some cities will get a little tricky and they'll do like a planner on the floor or something like that where they dedicate one person a day so that their other staff members can get their work done, things like that. But you do have to address those, because that's part of the general government, that's part of ad valorem taxation and all the other, items that go with government. I know you guys have said you want to do a fee schedule, and I don't want you to get hung up on that, because all a fee schedule will do, even under a cost recovery system, is give you the initial charge. Because if we say it's 10,000 and we go past 10,000, guess what? We got to ask them for more money anyway.
Then add in there to have the visibility to add on more in the future, if
But
something happens.
you got to be careful, because you don't want to start charging exorbitant
I'm not saying.
fees. I
Well,
mean, you
we
don't know what,
charge
because you're using their money, you're holding their money.
But if things are moving on, I mean, if the project keeps changing, of course, we have to have the visibility to add on more hours to it, rather than just one-time fees.
Right.
We do that.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
do.
that-
We
well,
started with
okay, then do it.
$10,000 on Simon and we ended up with 30,000.
Okay,
And
that's
in
what we do then,
college,
why we have a
we
problem.
ask them as we go along, when they get low, we ask for
That's-
replenishment.
The only difference in a fee schedule is this, the way we do it now, when we have a prospective applicant coming in to do some kind of development, any kind, I will usually sit down with them along with Jim Fleischman. And we, based upon what they're gonna do, we try to come up with a fair and equitable number, initial number, for them to pay cost recovery. Now, if we say it's we say it's 5,000, okay? If you had a fee schedule, all you would be doing is memorializing 5,000. Because we started to look at this for you, we didn't have enough cases,
Mhm.
because you haven't been in business long enough cases to take a look and try to do an average or see what, based upon cost recovery, what a zoning request is costing versus a variance versus a comprehensive plan amendment. There weren't just enough cases. And you don't want to be arbitrary up front and overcharge, because as I said, you're holding somebody's money, especially if you're never going to use all those expenses. So there's a fine line there, and we'll try to come up with an initial schedule. It's easier than Jim and I trying to guess
I
on a
know
case-by-case
that
matter.
we don't want to overcharge, neither do we want to undercharge. Can we charge them the actual cost?
I think in the end results, they
The actual
do.
cost.
We're trying to do
So
that,
we're
it's not
No,
working.
well, up to a certain point, if we know that we are not recovering, then we have to tell them how much it cost us, and then they have to pay before we move on.
We provide, I do reconciliations and submit the invoicing, so they know how much the newspapers are charging, how much the planner is charging.
I don't even,
No, I just think, that we should hear from the public, and
no,
then
but we don't have
we
something to pay.
may want, what I would suggest that we do is that we put the issue of the fee schedule on the agenda at a future meeting.
We have the fee
And
schedule.
It's on there under
It's on
old
there.
business.
I think
so-
what we need to do is to maybe
it to-
modify it and to say exactly what we want to do.
Yeah,
and
because we're
just
not gonna
to-
solve that
To
here.
reserve
We
it,
need to-
because we are not reserving here right now.
Right.
Now, of course, I know that you're running into some difficulty there. Your hands are tied. I think we need to have something to facilitate your process while any appearance of favoritism or anything else, any political influence would not affect the way that we cost people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate.
That's a good way.
I'm sorry, Lena,
It's okay.
Lena has something, she wants to talk about,
Nina
Europe. Lena Conning, please.
Nina Corning, E-Road, 2834 E-Road. Some of the things I was going to say were going to bring familiar with what management just said, and basically, if you were to go to the county, or you were to go to Wellington, and you may be or may not be a resident, you may be saying, I'm looking into purchasing a property in such and such road, this is the address, this is the parcel number. These are some of the things that I'm in my due diligence time. Or, could you tell me what am I allowed to do? What are the setbacks in that neighborhood? That kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, they will be very polite, they will give you an answer, they will lead you in the right direction. They may tell you it's on such and such, go onto that website, look under this, and this is the place, and you will see
Right.
where you will find
Right.
this. Be aware of da-da-da-da-da, there may be square footage issues, or, land coverage numbers that they will pass along. There is no involvement of an attorney
Right.
at that point,
Right.
when it's free time, okay? As soon as the attorney starts, hours start clicking, it's a different issue. Now, part of the problem I think that we're finding here in Loxahatchee is, Loxahatchee Bros, we're learning about some of our own ULDCs in the process. And I think that is very much difficult for management to figure out, is this just a regular small waiver? How is the council going to feel about it? Is this going to blow up into a majestic issue? And the same goes for the person that's asking the question. There's still a lot of things that are unclear. It's why it's so important to work through those ULDCs. I think one of the biggest holes you'll find in your budget is what happened with the day property. That is something that absolutely, before they get a yes or no on an answer, and they get upset, cost recovery should absolutely kick in. And that is, once they've perceived a no, and now you're in a lawsuit, try to recover your funds then.
Yeah.
It should never go that far. That's my 2 cents for the issue.
Thank you, Lina. Okay, why don't we bring it back next time from old business back to the new business. We surface it, okay?
We'll be happy to talk about it then.
Thank you, okay. Eunice, you want to go ahead and
And
finish it?
that is really it. I'm not gonna ask anything else. I'm just, you know, I think
Okay, we
we
can
can
talk about
table
that.
it all and talk about it later, but we need to just be very clear on, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we should have, I mean, if I come to you and I say I want to subdivide my property, I would expect to pay for that and not have my next door neighbor be taxed for it, you know. That would be my expense, whether I'm a resident or, you know, whether I'm,
But you're just talking, but you're not talking about asking for information, you're talking about filing an application.
filing.
Right, you're not
Yeah,
asking
yeah.
for an
Okay.
ordinance change
Right.
Same thing there, we
either.
haven't get to that on the.
Right,
Yeah.
she's not asking for an
Yeah.
ordinance change that, you know,
No.
based on her property needing an ordinance change.
No, I'm just saying that if I do something that benefits my property, the town has something that benefits my property, then I should pay for that, whether I'm a resident or I'm not a resident. You know, it's,
One thing too, you may remember, we also, council also adopted a fee, we recommended we do a $200 zoning letter, which, you know, sometimes, and what that's about is, sometimes when somebody comes in and asks us, you know, a question whether it's ag in Virginia or knows this from the ULDC, or something that's a little trickier, and we have to spend time researching it. I mean, I don't know if $200 necessarily covers it sometimes, but at least it's an offset, so the town's not totally being taken to the cleaners by virtue of that requirement.
right.
And I think also, you know, as the town learns more about what is correct and not correct, just placing some of the information on the website, and even links and where, you know, go to MuniCode, do this, do that, would probably save you a lot of time. You know, you can say, here, go to our
Really,
website.
it's all on there.
Right, but I'm saying people don't know about, you know, that would save time giving the general public that information. I do have some questions
Go
on
ahead.
3 checks. For the next meeting, I'd like to see a copy of the billing that goes with 3 checks, and one of these checks ties into our future discussion. Check number 5704, I'd like to see the billing for that, our next agenda.
Vendor.
Frank Shiola.
It's on the internet, isn't it?
No, I would like the billing in the agenda, please.
Do you have a specific subject to discuss, or you just want to know what they are?
I'd like to see the billing, yes. I'd like to see the specifics of the billing in the agenda. 5713,
What page are you
133,
Vendor?
Loxahatchee Groves Water Control District.
These are all on there.
That's okay. I'd like it in the agenda. 5721,
Vendor?
A&D Engineering.
And what would the subject be? Just,
She wants to see the page of the buildings.
Well, one, Frank Shiola, we've never had one of his invoices in the agenda as long as I've been here. We're supposed to have a variety, a selection of invoices from a variety of vendors. We discussed selectively invoices would appear, different vendors. We had that discussion over a year ago, yeah. You know, occasionally, we just a little selection, or we could ask for them.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, just because this is a contract, this is our new contract, right, 5713?
713.
Check number Loxahatchee Groves Water Control
We have-
District Road Maintenance Grading.
Yeah, we have
I just
three.
like to
That's
see an
one of them.
example of one in the,
That's one of them.
in the agenda. And then 5721, A&B Engineering, I would just like to have that invoice presented so we can have a discussion of the work that was done.
Do you want?
Do you
to
want
just-
this every month?
No, just for the next agenda. I'd like-
Okay.
You just want to have 1 month of the billing, or,
No, I
No,
would
no,
need
no,
specific
checks.
checks. I would like to see the backup.
Okay,
okay,
And as part of being an audit committee, we have that right to ask.
absolutely.
yeah, we could, yeah.
Okay.
And then 5704, I would probably bring up when we get back to the Waste Pro information that we'll be discussing.
Virginia also to assist the management company for, to expedite the process and answer. If you have other questions that you think they need to answer, I think we can talk to them later on.
No, I just want these on the agenda for the next
Make sure
meeting.
they have prepared enough information for their question. otherwise it'll be hard for them. Okay, anything else? Sure. Liz,
No?
are we all okay with the financials?
Okay, before we get off that, I do have one question concerning a comment that Mark made early on, that the general rule of thumb was that it gets charged to zoning and planning. With the exception thereof, if the council designates a special funding, is that correct?
Special project.
A special project.
Special assignment, whatever, yeah.
Now, should that special project be given a separate code and a budget? How else are you gonna track it?
They appropriate the funds.
Okay, but they say $20,000.
And
How are you gonna know how much money is being spent in that particular code?
Well, we can show you the monthly.
Okay,
The work authorization, we've got 1 through 4 now. But if there's ever another work authorization, it'll be number 5. There's a budget amount. It shows all the payments and work done up to this point, with balance left, and what the remainder of the project.
okay, so you're tracking,
Yes.
okay.
And you've actually had Jim Fleischman's on every agenda, so you
Mhm,
you
yeah,
can
we
track
can
his
all-
very easily, yeah.
invoices.
Yeah, okay,
That's one of the reasons we do that.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions and comments? Seeing none, let's call a question for item number C and D. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries 5-0. Okay, item number 5E, review of planning zoning ordinance. Is this for FII?
That's an FYI.
Any question for the FII for this item? No? Okay, let's move on, item number F. Discussion relative to co-enforcement.
That is a
Postpone.
presentation, Mr. Chair, that we would have asked for, but because of the item that we have tonight that Ms.
Okay.
Ryan is going to bring up, we deferred it to February.
Okay. So, let's come to agenda item that we added on it, discussion on the town owning its own accounting system. Do we have enough information to discuss right now, or you want to wait?
Just as a matter of information, we actually did a presentation to Waxahachie Groves Landowners Association in November, and that was actually one of the items that the town management company brought up, is that it made things very difficult for each management company, because as there was a change, and we are the third, they've had to deal with the other system going out and ours coming in, and, you know, that it would have been a lot easier, probably a lot more efficient and effective if the town had their own system and the management company just came in and took over based on that
And we
system.
recommended that within the first 6 months.
Well, why didn't we do it?
The money.
How much was it?
A cheap system would cost you no less than $25,000.
Okay.
That would comply with governmental accounting standards and generally accepted accounting principles.
Would it be?
That is not, what is that software?
QuickBooks.
It's not QuickBooks. It's real.
What are we on? Are we on QuickBooks?
Is it GMBA or what system is it?
This is not, this is a dumb one.
What's the name of the
The
thing?
town does have QuickBooks on their computer equipment system, so they might have been using QuickBooks at one time.
Okay.
So what are we on now?
What?
We're on,
You're on, it's called MAS, M-A-S, it's municipal accounting software.
and
What?
who owns it?
Our vendor.
Why don't we,
We
Under
rent, we
I-
rent time.
Yeah,
I think
We
that.
rent
that-
time on their on their.
But if we want to have our own, then we have to pay for our own software.
yeah.
I think this has a long cost to us.
Yeah.
That's how you correct. So I think it's a good idea, if the committee thinks that it's good to have our own for the benefits, continuity.
Well, right now, we don't have an audit trail.
We,
No, if the new company is coming or they decide to change the new system, then we lost everything.
we have audit trails.
I've been a proponent and
Yeah,
recommended
that's
from the
good.
day I got here that you get it.
Yeah,
The issue is the investment that the town would have to, the initial investment and the initial setup is gonna take.
So we could recommend taking one.
Let's set up a,
2015 budget,
let's set up
you
a
know.
cost recovery system for the county system.
Let me rephrase that. You don't own and control, the town does not own and control its audit trail, and it is susceptible to serious damage in transferring information from management to management.
It's only one of the drawback, it's more than that.
We had
Yes.
to actually like rekey things.
Right.
We
Well,
have-
how much of a problem would it be for you to transition what we have now into,
New system,
yeah?
depending on the system, I have to,
I think that that's the step two, that's,
When we took over, we had to rekey the whole year in.
I remember.
So we had to recreate the whole year, and that meant every entry. So that's a
Big job.
bit, if you
So
could get a
cost
software
exists.
system that's compatible with what you have in place now, that can generate the kind of reports that you're used to, that would be wonderful.
Sure, we have a comment?
I just have a quick question. With our own accounting software system, that would mean better security for our documents, would it not?
it would be 100.
In terms of what had occurred previously in the transition where
We lost everything.
weren't where they were supposed to be and.
Well, we still don't know where some things might be.
And that goes along with my statement, you don't own your audit trail.
Yeah.
This system you're talking about, is it encrypted?
It would be, I mean, in between wherever you have it housed and where, I would not recommend that you have an IT in town hall, because that could be hacked and somebody will take it.
Let's,
So you would want to host it with somebody else, and it'd be encrypted from here to wherever
Right.
you get.
That's what I was.
let's consider to have a recommendation for the council at our next report to them, we ask them to direct the town management to go out for RFP, to see what's available out there, and I think we need to start the ball rolling. I think because the town management highly recommended it
That's true.
at the early stage, so I think we should follow through.
Because as a cost, it would be a small percentage of the budget of what this town spends, is the
If-
final point to that
If we could
statement.
spend millions of dollars on opening the roads,
We can spend
And
$25,000
grading the
on
roads.
software.
the $25,000 is peanuts. Agreed?
Agreed.
Good, thank you.
The system I'm putting in
I
costs
know you're
$1
gonna
million.
write down.
Well,
1.8, is that it at 1.8?
I think you.
But that's a bigger town too.
I know that some of the towns, I know that when I was with Cold Springs, that we even outsourced, I mean, Portland came to Cold Springs and asked to use the system in Cold Springs, so. I was serving the same capacity at the time, so.
That's so people do that here too.
Yeah.
Local, you could
Let them
ask
use
other
our- yeah.
cities
See, I know
and
somebody that might be.
to
interested.
rent space
Yeah.
on their system.
Right.
But you may not want to go there.
And then there's really a true cost recovery system. They would build them and make some money. Okay. And then you can add 5%.
Maybe we could ask Haverhill.
No, it's 10.
10%.
That's not our recommendation,
Now,
yeah.
could you
Okay,
say
I
what
think
you
we would
wanted?
ask the town to direct the management company to go out for the RFP for an accounting system, software system.
That is owned by the
Oh,
town?
yeah, of course, yeah. To purchase,
Okay.
and then, and also the management company did highly recommended it, before, and we just have not followed through.
Now it's been 2 years.
Okay.
Never too late.
We've had time to audit the finances and see it would be a small percentage of the overall costs.
Okay, that's good, at least we get something done today. We covered them. Any other questions? All good? Okay, let's move on to item number 7, presentation. Presentation A, discussion relative to written recommendations to the town, page 221.
I guess it's mine.
Yeah.
You want me to take it from there? Okay.
Yes, please.
Well, first of all, I want to just explain what this is. We made a recommendation to the town council, and I guess in October, and it wasn't really, well received by the council or understood by the council,
Is
so we
that the one that
decided,
you were at?
yeah, where you presented and, you know, you took a list and.
I lost mine, and I apologize, Elise did ask for a copy of that, and I think it was before, I thought it was November, it was before the holidays, and I could not find my note, but it is on the video,
And
it
I
was
couldn't,
there.
listen, I've been trying to find it on the video and I haven't been able to find it. So here's what I did, and you guys can, you know, say you like this or you don't like this. I winged it, okay? I tried to piece together from the minutes and from whatever available information was there, what we said, and put it in writing. And, you know, maybe I want, you know, so this is a draft and it's strictly being put here for your review and comment, and hopefully we will come up with something that everybody supports when we get to the end of it. But I tried to write up what my understanding of the discussions was, and if I misinterpreted something somebody says, then don't get your feelings hurt, it wasn't intentional, and we can fix it. But this was strictly intended as a draft, okay? I'd like to go through it, and then, you know, we can, there's a couple of things in here that I know need to be changed, that I will change. Because when I did this, I did not have the 2013 revised financials, so a couple, my numbers need to be changed, and there's one, you know, so that I can handle. But anyway, so here's what it says, page 222. This was the motion that was in the minutes. The FAAC requests that the council reconsider the 1.8 million capital budget. And I put it in 2 bullet points, the FAAC to state the reason for the recommendation. Now, everybody's okay with that, right?
Yep.
Or does somebody,
Okay. Now, these are reasons. I've got several charts with reasons for the recommendation.
That's you.
And I'm looking for you for wordsmithing or changes or anything that needs to be changed. Page 223, town reserves will be entirely depleted when planned projects are completed, and I listed the planned projects. So that's one of the reasons, one reason for our recommendation is that we've already fully utilized all of our reserves there. That doesn't mean they're spent, but they're assigned to projects. And then, okay, I need to take one thing off. There are no available funds in gas tax reserves, and the rest of that I'm gonna just delete it, because the money is still in the gas tax fund. So it's just gonna say there are no available funds in the gas tax reserves, because all of those have been assigned to projects also. And then we do have reserves in the general fund, but we do not recommend reducing our reserve requirement. That was what we discussed, and it's in the minutes, that we think we should not go below, we don't want to change our fiscal policy.
For just the bullet above that, rather than no available funds, there is like $26,000. So you want to say
Minimal?
very few.
There are minimal.
funds,
Okay, thanks.
Just for accuracy.
Yeah, minimal, but you know, maybe these little numbers can add up and help us with something.
We
Hey, that
know.
buys the software.
That's why I said.
By buying the software,
There's another $1,000 for the reserve.
Okay, except that it's a restricted fund and we can't use it. Anyway, okay.
Let me ask one
Moving
question.
on.
I hate to bring it up, but the 943 on Collecting Canal, that's
Yes.
for all of Collecting Canal,
Right.
not a portion of it.
That is for and all I'm saying here, Ken,
Yeah,
is this is what we have in the budget
right,
now.
right.
I'm not saying we should spend it or we shouldn't, this is just, these are the numbers
Okay.
that we want you to
Gotcha.
relook at,
All
okay?
right, okay.
And then the next one is reason for recommendation, annual surpluses are declining. And I did go back and look, a couple of these I need to change. Our general fund deficit, I believe, I was trying to come up with what is our run rate without all these transfers from here to there and everywhere else, and I think the number should be 180,000,
yeah.
right? I mean, it's on our chart number 1, not
Chart
on
number
28.
1 has got 580 less than 400.
Less than
so
400.
that's where you come up
So
with the
we-
180 run rate.
Yeah, we overspent by $180,000 for general fund line last year.
Right.
Okay, so that I need to change the
Which I
128.
believe we pointed out to the town council, they were running they're declining, and even Golsone emphasized that, but it was lost.
So we had, and I'm pointing out why we had the deficit of 180,000. It was because of 142,000. Now, these are not really non-recurring, they're discretionary, I should say, that due to large discretionary expenses, right?
So let's start at the top then. You're on this
Okay.
one, you're on the
I'm
top
on
of this,
224.
224. So you're saying the town is not.
Not currently taxing at a rate sufficient to replenish these reserves from the general fund.
See, I would.
You want this?
probably
How do you want to say
argue-
that?
I think you could say it the other way, yeah, we spend more than the tax.
Well, it's not a case of really, the issue is, you're not even, you don't have enough tax to even pay for BSO.
For what?
Okay?
We don't have
Well,
enough
wait a minute
what?
now.
Say that
You
again?
don't have enough tax to.
We're
pay
not,
for
our
BSO.
ad valorem tax doesn't pay our sheriff, that's what you're saying,
Yeah.
which we know.
And by
But
far,
now we can
So
stop
you
paying
can't
the
even
sheriff.
get-
In other
You can't
ways.
get to reserves because you can't even pay for the sheriff.
We'll just get rid of the
Okay,
sheriff.
so what I need to
Either
say,
that-
I see where you're going.
Rather than tax, you may want to talk about there's
Total
not currently
town
enough
taxes.
revenue.
Town
I mean, because it is
Taxes.
taxes, but it's revenue.
are not sufficient. All, you know, if you add up all of the general fund taxes, they're not sufficient to.
Rate. The same.
It's gonna be close.
But Elise, what was the statement by the town council about holding the rate? The tax rate, have they made a statement?
Didn't they make a statement and vote to not raise the taxes? They were gonna,
Well, they reduced the tax.
They
or
reduced it.
reduce the
Yes,
taxes.
they reduced them. And that was not our recommendation. We did not recommend.
You know, I
reducing.
mean, that should be in here, should it not?
Yeah, sure.
That they made a
But let's-
decision to reduce.
You may want to have that bullet in there.
But I think we've got it. I mean, we've got right below that, town general fund revenues have declined, primarily due to decreases in ad valorem revenue and utility service
You're being
taxes.
kind, Elise.
Okay, the ad valorem revenue, I will say, why don't I say decreases in property value and council initiated millage reductions?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, put it out there, you know.
Dina, you want to,
That's what they
you have some
do.
comment, you might as well jump in.
Go
Reference
ahead, put
to
your hand
dropping in value, I think, I shared that with you, didn't I? Waxahachie Groves is looking pretty good, actually. So, I mean, it's that we reduced the taxes in general, I think is what's affecting that more so than the value. We're not
No,
dropping
we
anymore.
reduced the taxes. What's the impact of the ad valorem, all of them, ad valorem reductions, probably what, about 50,000 a year?
it was something like that, 40 something.
Yeah.
That was 40 and change.
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem, and so if they took it back up to the 1.5, they'd pick up, and then, but a lot of it was also due to the fact that we're down, I mean, we are down in revenue about $500,000 from a few years ago when the properties were so high. So of our reduction, it's primarily been reduction in property values. That's been the biggest part of it. That's,
Except you can't set it on, based on a balloon is what my point is. You can set it on the recent, and it's on the way up versus
It
on
is.
the way
It
down.
is.
So it's a bad argument if you're trying to say, you know, we're losing tax revenue. I think your better argument is what you said earlier, that we've reduced taxes, now we have all these expenses. I find that to be a better
The
argument.
values went down
than basing it on the
9%, so
balloon.
that meant we receiving less funds for the same tax rate.
But I think overall, the argument is irregardless of what your revenue is, that
That's
you
not
have.
a word.
I'm, okay, well, you know,
Grammar.
How would you like me to say it? Yeah. No, give me this lesson. How would you like me to say it?
Irregardless is not correct. You should say regardless of the problem. You know,
In spite of the problem?
In spite of the
Yeah,
problem.
In spite of the problem?
okay. Some
Okay.
people with
Go ahead,
good
Elise.
well,
grammar.
basically,
Okay.
what I'm trying to convey here is that we are in a situation where our revenues are declining and our expenses are going up. Those, everybody agrees with,
And
right?
how some of those expenses are unnecessary is what you're trying to say.
No, I'm not saying that, I mean
I might
unnecessary.
be saying that.
We,
Well, you-
here's the thing, town general fund, expense increases legal, okay? We're gonna have to, people file a lawsuit against us, we gotta defend it.
Right, or get an attorney that can prevent some of these lawsuits and is more competent in the advice they're giving the town.
Okay, and then planning and zoning, yes, we can reduce planning and zoning. I hope, if we can go to more cost recovery. The roadways, we don't have to spend money on roadways, it's discretionary. Especially the 142 that we spent on North Road, that was discretionary. And the solid waste, it is not really an increase, it's an increase in the general fund because we gave $137,000 to the solid waste fund to reduce the assessment, the garbage assessment for everybody in the town. So, but that's what I put. I've got charts and I can show more detail if you want to do that. I just want to know what the committee thinks we should do.
I think what's missing on page 224, and I'm very serious about this, is the quality of what we're paying for. As far as, it touches on part of this, which we'll get to later, touches on what residents are charged for on their tax bills. It's the quality of service, and it keeps increasing our costs. When you bring in a bad product or a bad service, we're having to pay to correct these situations over and over. And my concern is somewhere in here, I just like something said about the quality of the services provided.
We don't provide you good
No,
quality.
I'm not, I'm not talking about,
I don't know, I think you have to be more
Do you-
specific.
Yeah.
well, let's say the money we spend on roadways.
Yeah, it's very subjective.
No, not really, it's not subjective.
How could you?
When, I'll give you an example, when the Loxahatchee Groves Water Control District, we're spending money, I look at the B Road Canal, and I've got growth in the B Road Canal that is not being maintained, and we pay money to the water district, and yet they are out doing work on town roads, which some residents I have talked to are questioning the quality of their work on some of those roads. We have to look at what we're paying for and expect good quality. When our roads get oged, or like I respect what you guys did when you asked the engineer to go out and look at that road. This is a perfect example. We had that gentleman come in who's going to spend town money. There's the issue of paving those roads. And at least further in brings a good point about seeking grants for some of this stuff. But we had poor quality work done by the county, which is fine, it was the county, but there's been other poor quality work done on the roads here, which we are now paying for, going to have to pay for to have this stuff redone. So you went and asked for the engineer to look at the road, and he made simple recommendations. So when we spend that money, we know it's spent and we're going to get more value out of it. So we need to make sure that when we spend money,
That still sounds very subjective.
I don't disagree with what you said. Now, we are mixing apple and oranges together right now. We said that, well, their priority is somewhere else instead of B-roll, so B-roll is deteriorated.
no, I'm talking about quality of services.
Well, how you could measure it?
You gotta measure it.
Because they
Well, then
spend
what are you
time.
paying for?
I know,
How are you
but-
paying for something?
But well, it depends on where you want the service to be delivered. Is it on B-roll or is it on
No,
on
I'm
road?
talking in general. I'm not talking about a
Well, then
specific road. I'm
you-
speaking in general, quality of services. Example, we have paid for things to be done in this town, and now we're having to pay for them to be done again because of poor
You have
service.
to have an example.
I'm not sure what
You
you're-
cannot say overall, you can only say,
I mean, we didn't pay, you're talking about the OJAC,
you
the,
cannot,
the
you
thing
cannot
with
generalize
that.
to the whole
We
district.
didn't pay anything
You,
for that.
all the time, if you have an example, we can only cite the example that fuel is not being maintained properly. You have to say it because too much dust. You can't say, we don't receive quality product.
Okay, here's an example. Are we not paying money to the, residents also pay, but does not the town pay money to the Loxahatchee Groves Water Control District for maintenance of district roads? Or is it just town roads?
Means the town roads.
Okay.
But we pay both.
Okay, I'll give you a specific example. So
Okay.
I have not seen a crown on North B Road in over 10 years. That is poor maintenance. That is poor
And that's a
drainage.
water control district issue.
No, that is money, that is part of the money we are spending for
I
quality.
know
I know you,
What's the
What's a
crime?
crown?
You don't know what a crown is?
okay, I've lived here
Brody
not
Shaw.
getting, I'm just saying quality
Like the
of
crown
what
like
you
this?
spend.
Yeah.
Like, you mean the road is graded like this?
It should be.
All right, tell you, let's just get back to this page. Let's just,
Our
I'm
road-
not going around and around.
No, our road is like this, I mean, the crown, I understand that, we have 60 acres, we have 180 acres farm. We grade the crown, I understand the crown. I thought, I've never seen a crown in wood, because it only slope towards,
It has to
the
slope
resident.
towards it.
never slope towards the canal. It's not a crown, it's a slope.
Yeah,
It
you
depends
don't
on what
turn
road you're on.
Okay.
All
So,
of their
In other
let's-
words,
let's,
some
I
roads
want to
need
say
to
it,
be
to make sure
sloped.
that they know,
So
if
the
you want to
grade-
criticize or critique it, they know where to go.
Yeah, I think we should,
I mean, if you see an example of corridor road, then let's say it.
yeah, I mean,
I'm speaking of, when we spend our money, we need to make sure, as the town did for us, we're about to spend money on Compton Road, and I appreciate this, that they include qualities like they had the engineer go out. Now,
Right.
yes, some of the town council got very irate and upset about it,
but we
but
did.
I think, right, and that's what I'm trying, however you want to word that, we need to make sure we have that type of commitment to when we spend dollars,
Have a new bullet.
we are doing things,
To say, to ensure that all
Okay.
To
roads.
ensure that the cost is not repeated in the future.
Well,
for
or
the same
whatever.
thing.
If you're doing construction, you should have services, construction, engineering, and inspection.
right, but, and overall, in general, I'm just, how do you say, when we, basically, in terms of, when you spend money, you spend it, well, you know,
They can't grade.
Well, number one is you
And
have
I
to have
didn't know who
plans,
graded it by
you
how
have to have
long.
survey.
well, I'm not just speaking of roads, though, you know, I'm speaking, you know, that was just
But
an
we are doing
example.
this for the,
You
we
don't
are
wanna
doing
have
it, I
to
know
repeat it
everybody.
again.
Right, no, but I'm just trying to speak of quality and commitment.
The town has to have the ability to go back, if they have a project, and this is what we expect, then you have to have everything in place when you do the project, so if the work is not done the way it was specified, the town has some kind of recourse to go back to the vendor and say, make the necessary changes, because you didn't do it based on the requirements that the town imposed when they gave you the contract.
So what do you call
On
it?
any,
Well, yes,
It's a criteria.
Well, an engineer would call it
Whatever.
a chain of
Quality
custody.
criteria.
Chain of
Chain of
custody.
custody.
It's whatever, it doesn't matter if it's a computer system, a road, a
Everything
park,
has to be.
Yeah.
You have the criteria.
I know that we seem to be missing it in some parts of what we do here.
But I think, I mean, okay, is that what do we want to say though? I mean, I don't think we want to say,
We need to examine the quality of the services that we are spending money on so that they're not repeated in the future needlessly.
and are we saying they're not doing that?
What do you guys?
You
No,
want
no,
a
I-
perfect
Are you
example,
not,
folks?
are you not monitoring it? I mean, that's what it boils
No,
down to.
no, not really, they're doing, they are doing
Well,
what hasn't been
this
done in
is-
the
this
past.
is
What's
what
the
we're
breakdown?
doing.
What's the breakdown that we are paying for something not up to quality? That's what we're saying now, right?
Where have we paid for something?
I
that
mean,
wasn't
who's
up to
doing it? I
par?
mean, not the council. I mean, it's
Yeah.
this guy sitting right across from us. I mean, you want to say it? Tell them now.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at some of the maintenance again that the Loxahatchee Groves Water Control District is doing on town roads. And I will be saying this in a water district
That goes on
meeting.
a different chart.
Right, okay, that's what I'm
Right.
saying, this
This
is not
chart-
for this chart.
But yeah, I don't think that's for this chart.
Right.
I think that's coming up later.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're gonna leave this chart the way it is, and we're gonna push that back to,
Quality assurance.
There's I think it fits in on another chart. Reason for recommendation. Here we are.
Okay, good.
Inconsistent policies.
Yeah.
Town road improvement and maintenance policies appear inconsistent and/or need further definition. Are you happy with that one?
Yeah, although on this one, where we had gas tax future revenues are partially committed due to maintenance and hedging on town roads,
Oh,
we could always cancel, their services can always be reevaluated
Absolutely.
and canceled.
Well, that's what we're asking them to do.
you
I
didn't-
mean, we're
what
saying,
do you mean here?
clarify.
Here, maintenance
Well,
policy, what policy? You mean ordinance or the way they implement?
what
it?
I meant, okay, what I was referring to is, and maybe that I didn't word it very well, but first of all, the policy for, we can
What
split
is
it
policy?
out.
What policy?
Okay, we have a policy of,
You mean ordinance?
no, I don't.
What is it?
Well, what I'm saying is, we've got in the budget, some roads are being paid for by the town. The OJEMing on some roads is being paid for by the town. That's what I really meant, so we could just delete that if you want.
Because
Or-
policy to me means like ordinance, rules and laws.
No, well, or, it doesn't
Well, no,
have to be an
maintenance.
ordinance, it could be
Well, what
a.
is it?
Time out. A maintenance policy would be what Mr. Underwood just mentioned to you. For example, that you have surveying, that you have proper engineering. You wouldn't undertake a project without having those things, they're basic. It's crazy to go ahead and do that.
So you,
That would be a maintenance, a policy.
so you're referring to the process,
Well,
That
yeah,
is-
everything gets back to process.
that is in writing?
Yeah, there is a written policy.
Do we have
Okay.
that?
Yes, there is a written policy for town road maintenance.
Okay,
And that policy needs to be reviewed, in my opinion, because right now, we have a situation where the resident calls, town management sends the water control district out, water control district goes out.
Not anymore though, not anymore though, not with the new
No.
contract.
Yeah,
Not,
The
not
new
with the
contract changed
contract.
that.
What happens now?
they're on quadrant.
Well, yeah, we were on a modified quadrant plan, but
and then,
basically, they're like a vendor, so we had to give them notice to proceed if we
would
wanted that
that become like
to
a
be
problem?
done.
So you have
Yeah.
control, you have more control over the process, the
At
cost
least that's in
process.
166.
All right, let's just talk about the maintenance policy.
And
We-
let me just say one more thing, because I
Okay.
think you were focusing on the.
I just said, I don't, it's a.
Not only that,
it's
but
a-
now we also have procurement policies.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay,
put it in
and if
there.
we're not following the procurement policies, there's an inconsistency between maintenance. Because, for example, construction projects should always be bid, should not be done in any fast tracking type of situation. And I think that's what you were trying to say. So, I mean, that would be an
Oh,
example of
yeah.
inconsistent policies.
I mean, I think we're very much in agreement with that.
Our maintenance policy changed when we went out to bid for road grading services and road repairs and rock material. And so no longer do we get that many calls from residents, that's very seldom do we have now. The water control district grades so
On
many
a
roads a
schedule.
month. And what they bill us for, and then they bill us for the roads that are graded. There's a lot of roads that don't need service on a monthly basis. There's some roads that need it more than once a week. And then there's one road that the council has approved that it be graded every week.
And there's others that said they don't want to be graded at
And
all
then
to stay
there's-
off our road.
And then
Okay,
there's
then that's
some,
pretty
and
inconsistent,
there's
right?
some
Yeah.
residents that live on
And the
some
road
roads.
that's graded every week does not have the highest amount of
Oh,
traffic.
I have a suggestion.
Well, I don't
What
know.
road is the,
If we
it's been
can,
requested to do it?
we put down, for example,
Pardon?
What road is it?
road, whatever
161st.
was graded more than necessary, road 8 or
We
B road.
we need two bullets.
I think that's, I would have a subsection in there to give them example about the comment that
Uh-huh.
the maintenance policies were not implemented consistently. Like,
We need two bullets.
I would like to, I would put
One
one
for-
example there, like Martin said that whatever road was graded once as required by town, once every week, every month, D road is something, just give them the inconsistency.
All right,
Yeah.
so I'm
I'll
gonna
give
do a
example.
separate bullet for our maintenance policies appear inconsistent.
And then underneath it, I would put different examples.
Okay,
Just
so the
all the
examples
real
would be the
examples.
grading schedule.
Yeah.
Can I mention something that since we've instituted after the bid,
Mhm.
since I'm the one that deals with the billing from the water control district, I believe that the bid has been very successful because our costs are down. We're having roads that didn't have attention, they're getting the proper attention. We do have some that we have the squeaky wheels, they get a little bit more attention, but overall, our costs are down. We run somewhere between $1,200 and $2,000 a month for road grading, which is a lot less than what we used to. And if I look on the website, I put the charts of what roads were graded this month, and you're gonna start seeing, over you look at the months and you look at prior years, that we're having a lot of new roads that never got that much attention are getting attention. When they go through the week, they look at all the roads. If roads look good, we are no longer just grading them. We're only looking at the ones that need the service.
So who does the looking?
The Water Control District does the listing. We do a work authorization by quadrant, and they can do, on that list of all the roads listed for that quadrant, they'll decide which ones. We get a lot of back that say this is a driveway or this is grass, and we don't grade those. So there's a lot of roads that aren't, just because they're on the list, that doesn't mean they automatically get graded. And the Water Control District is making those judgments out
So
in the field.
we're actually grading as needed and not on a schedule where one town road gets, okay.
And not all roads.
Well, see, it's
grade.
important
It just
to know
depends
this.
on which ones are needed. There's a lot of them that there's no dirt to grade, that's grass, so.
And you're not getting residents calling in or asking?
We're not getting as much as we used to. We used to get, it was like the same residents calling every day for the same roads. Now, we
Okay.
do get times where people call in and ask if their road can be graded by 4 o'clock because they're having a birthday party. We still get
So
those
actually,
calls.
what you're saying is you don't believe that we have inconsistent maintenance policies?
I think now it's better than it has been.
Well, let me ask you this. How many requests are there out there that people want their road graded once a week? I mean, once every week? How many? One?
But we're not grading it every week, right? We are grading it every week.
I think that was the instruction of the
Town
The
council.
council made that decision.
So there's one road we're grading every week, and the other roads we're just grading based on whether they need
Whether
it or
they
not.
need it or not.
Then we're, okay, then that's pretty simple. I can put that as a bullet.
Which road is good every week?
Grading schedule, 161st.
Which one is it?
161st. That was council initiated and the council
That was,
proposed.
yeah, and that really creates a perception of, yes, okay.
But on the positive note, on the rock material, up to the bid, we had spent about $50,000, and we have spent in the last 7 months, not even 1,000. So, the
Wow.
cost of rock
Why?
material has plummeted, and it's almost, it's non-existent at this point.
Why?
Why?
Just stop.
It's being monitored.
We require now that when a rock material request comes in, that when the district delivers, it delivers it straight to the road, and I have to be present beside the load tickets. So, sometimes I sit out there all day long, but, it hasn't,
Call us, we'll come sit with you.
no, I've met, and let me tell you, it's a good thing, I've met all the landowners on Casey Wilson Road. So any road I'm on, I usually spend the day, and they're very nice, they'll offer me chairs, water, and
May I ask why you have to wait that long for delivery of rock?
because every load has to go be picked up at
Right.
the aggregates and then brought back and dumped, and then the other load, they'll grade that one, and then the other, if there's multiple loads for,
Colonel, just a suggestion. Maybe if some residents there, like, I'm just thinking, if it's close to my house, you can call some residents and say, no kidding, it'll be a lot easier and better. And I'm sure if somebody's home, if I'm home, I'll be more than happy to do that.
No, but the
You
point,
can
but the
call me,
point
I'll
is,
come
Just
back
that
for my
comes
office.
of control, no, control, I
No,
understand.
Phil,
control
this is
monitoring,
their
but
job,
I think
Phil.
you should insist and
I
ask
know,
them
we can
better
just
so they can
verify
provide
our
our
we
station
haven't
instead of
done it
sitting there
very
all day.
often.
Can they call you when they deliver?
I know.
Yes, they can, they do
They
it all
should.
the
Call you
time.
when they deliver, don't just sit there and
Well,
and introduce.
we changed that policy halfway through, so they would give me an hour's head up,
I understand.
so I could leave and go back to the office. and
Yeah, it should be way
Two load, three load.
But that doesn't
I can
happen
see.
very often.
I don't know whether it's cool or
So
not.
what,
Let's go.
going back to
It's
this,
low.
what we're saying here is that the maintenance or grading policy appears inconsistent. And I bullet under that says grading schedule, one road, one time a week, others based on need. Yeah, that's, and maybe someone will go ballistic when I say that, but hey, it's causing a public perception that needs to be addressed. Yeah, well, all right, now town road improvement policies are also inconsistent. And it's, let me,
Boy, was that an understatement?
by town road, I meant, I meant all the roads that are being transferred.
And those are not all, are going to, they're already transferred, so all the The lettered roads that were OGIM are the town roads. So when you asked earlier what the definition of town roads are, all the non-lettered roads, which were the district roads, with the exception of North A, South C, and
South
North
C,
C,
North
and
C.
North D, those have been transferred to the town a couple of months ago, so those are town roads now. And Compton, Bryan, and Marcella are town roads, along with all the other named roads. Collecting Canal is not a town road. Folsom is not a town road. North Road is not a town road.
Six Court North.
Sixth Court North is not a town road, and none of the lettered roads that are gravel are town roads.
Before we move any more forward, I think we kind of getting off our original plan. Because when we discuss about having something in writing, we try to recap of our discussion. Now we're getting into some additional discussion, additional information they're putting here, as if this were all discussed during our specific meeting date.
We did discuss this, I think.
Was it this detail? This detail? Listen, we have been talking for almost an hour,
But
hour
we've
and a
only
half.
been talking about this for
I know.
about 10 minutes.
I just don't want to get into discussion, which it just can't get off the original. I don't want to create a document.
You discussed at the last meeting inequity between the projects, how the town council determined who paid for what road. We had citizens being assessed for their roads versus
I
the
just
town
said that,
council.
I was here last meeting, I
Yeah.
remember. I don't recall that we get into this much detail, like we're buying the rocks, and then.
Oh, we're
Oh,
not
no,
gonna go
that-
into that. We're
No,
not.
I know, that's why.
We just
no,
asked for some, you asked for the example, that's why we went into
Yeah.
that.
No,
Yeah.
I know, because I'm trying to go back to our original thing here.
You're just-
Okay,
Okay,
it's getting confusing
I
because
think what we
I don't
need
want
to
to
do,
create a document which does not reflect the actual discussion.
well, I think we are discussing it right now. and
Well, yeah, we're getting
clarifying
through
where
it.
I'm
We're
at.
almost done. We're almost
We're
there. Let's
almost
keep
done,
going.
yeah. I mean, I don't think we have to necessarily worry about whether we set it at the October meeting or the November meeting, or whether we're saying it today. What are the views of this committee? That's what we're trying to get to. What does the committee want to say to the council? And I'm trying to clarify that. That's all I'm trying to do.
Okay.
So what is are we finished with the
And
first
since I
point?
didn't have any notes or any video to go with, I kind of winged it and I'm asking for everybody's help, but
I would rather not to call this as our, for this meeting, maybe it's just something in general that we feel that need to relate to the council. And I think that will, if people go back to the tape, we can talk about this thing. I don't want to create something. And this thing can be changed, that it's not just the discussion on that day. Now we're talking about other things that,
oh yeah,
Yeah.
we changed the first chart and just say, you know, we'll do a new motion to approve this report and it'll be effective today.
the discussion.
Yeah. When I get done with all the changes, then we'll say, I'll change that
Can you
chart
bring it back?
to bring it to the January date, and we'll vote on it, and we'll have whatever, you know, people, and you'll be voting on just what's on these charts.
Now, I think that it has much bigger implication for the discussion, okay, for this whole item. I mean, even we stop right now. Now we're talking about how we spend money in maintenance of road, how to spend tax money. It is a joint effort between the management and the council. Now, from my perspective, personal perspective, I see this thing not being done properly. I could point finger either to the council or to the management.
Well, you can't point to us.
Well, they said they started,
We only do what council
they
says.
find,
I know.
they're streaming
It's not
the
us.
maintenance is
I
what
know.
they're telling
I'm
us.
telling you,
Right?
the fact that we spend less money on the rock, on the gravel, was because the town management took an initiative to go and check the inspection. So this is their effort, their input, to hold the cost down. Opposite of that, if they haven't done it, we pay more than we should.
We were paying more than
See,
we should.
that is my point. When we have to pay more than we should, that means somebody dropped the ball.
In the
Who dropped the
past.
ball? I mean, not necessarily, because this thing could happen again. History repeats. You see what I mean? So we are either praising somebody or criticizing somebody. I think what we make sure
Or we're asking for consistency for the future.
Exactly.
We are just asking for
Exactly.
consistency in the
Exactly.
future. We're
You're
not
right.
praising or criticizing.
You're right. Well, let's take it this way. If something is inconsistent, it's that this is inconsistent. That means we want to be consistent.
Right.
The implication is that you have not done it consistently. It's a critique.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
good.
what we're here
As long
for.
as you understand it's a critique,
And you
We take no umbrage, it has nothing to do
Okay.
with us.
you know,
You understand the reason we bid is because our hands were tied. We had no
I
ability
totally
to
understand it.
decide or make even recommendations on what the priority was, on how the town was spending
Okay.
the money for maintenance.
go ahead, Eunice.
Okay. What I'm trying to do here.
Good job,
hopefully,
but you did it.
and it's a
Good job.
challenge, But, you know,
Yeah, you
let's
did a
just
good
get it
job.
on a
This
piece
is
of
funny.
paper and discuss it, because we've got a lot of road issues that need to be talked about, and, you know, and we need to get a consensus on it.
Did we finish the first one, or could you rephrase the first one? Just
Okay,
because
what I'm gonna do here.
Because we need
on
to go to
this
the
chart-
second one. We haven't gotten to the second one yet.
Yeah, well, here's what I'm gonna do, what I think I
Can't
should do
see
at
you.
this point to reflect what you guys have
You
told
know,
me, is there'll be 2 bullets. One,
if you went a little bit further in the beginning,
Uh-huh.
because really what you're doing here, you've got a two-pronged approach. You're addressing 2 features.
right,
One feature is the amount of reserves necessary for emergencies, yada, yada. The other piece is, what am I doing with those reserves? Well, I'm over here, and it's inconsistent. But when you started off your presentation, you really started with just the capital budget. It's really, there's 2 things that are running side by side, and either one is gonna tilt the balance out, and you might want to consider starting it off with, the issue is we're low in reserves with the plan on the road. And because you start off with a 1.8 million capital budget, rather than both items, because the 2 run together. Yeah, I think that's what you're doing when I look at it. In your first slide,
well,
on page 222,
yeah.
That's where she was saying low on money.
right
No,
there, well,
but
it's
I
really
said-
not. No, you're
Okay,
talking
so
capital.
how should we change this chart then to reflect what we want to say? What do you guys want to do here?
I think what you're trying to say is, you guys are about to spend all the reserves.
Right.
You're gonna spend it in this pocket.
Mm-hmm.
We don't agree with spending all the reserves because we have these equity issues,
Right,
and we don't have any consistent policies relative to those equity issues, and we don't want you to spend the money until we figure it out. Is that where you're at?
yeah, and you don't think that's what we're saying here?
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
His is a more condensed version.
Okay, you guys tell me what you want said, and I will say it. I'm just trying
It
to,
sounds perfect to me.
You're facilitating.
What do you think, Lon?
Before we move on, Lynn had a comment?
I'd rather have you guys finish that part up than cuts in the middle of that with something completely different. So I'll hold.
But I think that's where, I think that's where you're headed, but we
Yeah,
diverged.
I mean,
We all of a sudden went from 1.8 million, and now we're into, well, you don't have any consistent policies.
yeah, and I think, okay, but that was why we made the recommendation, I think, because we felt like, you know,
Hold off,
We wanted a better plan of how we were gonna spend the money.
and I think you have to say that quick, fast, and
hold off
succinct.
on what?
Well, later on though, they also talk about, they get into the issue of debt and, you know.
We get into all that later.
He's saying it's
You
too
know,
much
it's something we mentioned at the LGLA a couple months
You're
ago.
saying this is too much
Streamline it.
information.
We need to streamline it.
How about a visioning session?
It
Like
is.
a broken record with that.
They said that they wanted.
It
this
is,
group
it
said
is,
do a
it is
visioning
more than
session.
that, because a lot of this, we saw the direction
They're
in
gonna
the future.
budget.
It's
But we
actually.
can take this chart out entirely if we think it muddies the water. I mean,
That's
let's
why I
drop
think
the chart.
It's more than just we discussed, I keep telling you. It's more
Okay.
than we discussed before.
All right, so we'll.
It's not the whole thing that was, like a,
One sentence, perhaps. what
looking
we
back,
said.
what we have
The
done for the
issue
last
is
3 years.
We have this much, we
low on reserves.
It's not just one meeting.
I mean,
Okay.
they know what their budget.
Let me go get some
They
chocolate.
know.
Okay.
Vice Chair, you take the ground, I'm going to get some chocolate.
All right.
Some
But
of the rest of
I think
us.
up front, you need to
All right.
lay the, you need
So
to
what
lay
I
it
think
out.
what I think I'm hearing you say is just make the whole presentation a lot simpler.
Well, you gotta lay the predicate. What is the issue? The issue is you guys are gonna spend $1.8 million.
Right, we got that.
Low on reserves.
You're gonna do it this way,
Okay, so
and the
chart
way
2
you're
is
doing it
fine.
has no rules.
Yeah.
That's
So
to spend
That's no logic.
Wait, say that again?
No.
Counselor Underwood,
We're gonna spend $1.8 million.
lay the
And
predicate.
you're gonna spend it in this
We're running
manner.
low on
You're gonna
reserves.
spend
All the money, wait, say, Bill,
You're good, boy, I tell you.
You're going to
Say
spend
it
one
again.
point
You're gonna
eight.
spend $1.8 million.
We're running low on reserves.
You're gonna spend $1.8 million. You're gonna spend it in this manner, and you've got no rules in the way to,
No
no
consistent
consistent rules to spend it.
throughout the town. No consistency throughout the town on, no, there is no consistency throughout the town, or is that not the way to say it?
There's no consistency,
Just
period.
Oh, they should say,
okay, so
I mean,
take
you should
out.
credit for
oh,
saving the
sorry,
town a lot
guys.
of money.
I'm very happy.
It was a lot of work.
I gave
but
one
let's-
of
No,
my
I mean, you
Okay,
know,
your
this
point
isn't
is-
that long. I'm trying to get what you guys want.
Okay, so slide one, so can,
Slide 1 is okay.
No, let's just keep it real simple. Slide 1, the FAC requests that the council reconsider the 1.8 million capital budget because,
That's right.
All right, because.
okay, just slightly take out, or we can just make that the main point. The F requests the council, we're gonna do PowerPoint
I can
presentation.
block
All right, so because, and then the first
You
because
don't even
is,
have to say because, or you can just say simple, you don't even need because, just make it. And then go to the next slide, reason for recommendations.
okay.
Okay,
On
Reasons
slide
we're here.
223, we're on 223.
Oh, I was in
I mean,
226.
okay.
Reserves fully
Actually,
utilized.
they were on reserves fully utilized,
Yeah.
doesn't sound, I don't know if they're gonna get that.
Everything's,
No, I'm serious, I don't know if they're gonna get that.
well, if they don't get that, then we have a real problem. because-
Exactly.
No, I'm talking about the town
Well, no, but
council, I don't
we
know if
need
that
to-
phrase is
I don't know how
emphatic
many
enough.
members of the town council are accounting mind-oriented. I know Mr. Rocket is. I don't know how many others
And Mr.
are.
Oh, they
Olson is.
understand, I mean, oh yeah, they understand
Because
that.
sometimes you can bombard people with too much information and they'll
Well,
still
well,
read too
yeah,
much
but I
into
mean,
it.
when Virginia, I was there when Virginia tried to present this, and she did exactly that. And the first thing that Rocket stepped up with is what reserves and what are you talking about and what is it that the committee wants? So you have to have this in there. You can't, you've got to answer that question or you're not gonna get past slide number 1. So that is why I put that in there.
Okay.
What are
Is
you
this
asking
something that
them
we
to look
can,
at?
if this is something we can condense and maybe come back to on the next meeting?
You want,
Yeah,
okay, so here you're saying
I'm fine
town,
with that, if you wanna do that.
Yeah.
I don't wanna go in there with any recommendation until we're sure that we have the right,
Yeah.
you know, and so maybe what we should do is table this and then,
Well, try to condense it and see if we can make, instead of doing the biggest issue, which is, the biggest issue here is spending the 1.8 million. Let's see if we can put a bullet point and say,
Well,
you're gonna spend it, we want you to spend it consistently and wisely.
well, but also the issue is that you're gonna spend that 1.8 million and you don't have the money to put it back. So once you spend that, there is no
It's
more
not
money
right.
and we are not taking in enough with our current, you know, revenue stream.
There's not enough to compensate it plus, or for that matter.
So
do it.
anything else that you wanna do after you do these projects, you're gonna have to raise taxes.
I
Yeah,
think this is very constructive suggestion. Why don't we, if you could revise it and email us,
mhm.
and then.
I can't
well-
email you.
can I?
Well, send to them, they send to us. Send to them.
Why can't you email
Well,
me?
you guys have not, I tell you what, you guys have not given me really good
That's what I said.
instructions
May I
on
say
Too much
something?
sugar, I
Yeah.
need sugar.
May I say something?
Of course, how much sugar?
Based on, yeah, that, I don't feel we've given, what I'd like to be able to do is take, if each one of us perhaps goes through this based on what was said tonight, and then makes a revision to it and gives it to Mark to pass on to Elise, and then she can take our comments and
That
pick
would
and
be-
choose from them, and we can come back to her.
I want them to review it because
That's what I'm,
Yeah,
Because it has some implication on you guys, so I think we want to make sure you guys feel comfortable.
No implication.
What
these
I-
are some big things that we're talking about here.
What I'd like to emphasize on your last page, 229, and what I think is very important, the one thing I'm going to be emphasizing when I give my feedback, is on page 229, what is very critical to this town, if we don't want to revert back to Palm Beach County, is the seeking of grants and outside funds, not just raising the tax base, but we need to explore all revenue sources. So I'll be giving you that input, and I'll try and find, examples of that for you.
A question here.
Yeah,
If I may, on that note, we had a $200,000 grant match for horse trails in Once Upon a Time that dissolved. And I mean, I'm still hoping that once we are in some sort of position to put it back, that we can find funds someplace to
Yeah.
get that, to get more money.
exactly.
And,
That's
what's
good point.
really
That'd be good.
important as this message is being brought across, that this does not mean I'm going to go and protect, one councilman will protect one thing and another councilman will protect another. And they'll fight over whether it's the D Road Light or it's the Ojaming projects or whatever it is, it becomes a battle over whose project's going to go through, and people like us are gonna sit there and have this much, okay?
Yeah,
You mean okay?
Okay, so, I mean, that's a little bit my fear when, if this is not brought across with some sort of solution or some sort of other way to manage the concern, what will we actually end up with? What will be the result? What is the result you're trying to achieve?
Good, I think that's a good comment. I think that's the reason for this,
That's
all the
right.
things to write up, because we really wanted the council to know what are the issues out there, be it with the grant, the revenues, the taxes, the maintenance, the scheduling, and then how should they consider to address it. I think that's
Yeah.
the bottom line.
And these discussions will fold right into our business plan, our town
All right, I've got a question.
plan.
Go ahead.
What I see, somebody wrote on the board, and I don't even know who wrote it up there. Who do we serve? We serve the people of Waxahachie Grove.
Right.
Number two, currently we're in deficit spending.
Mm-hmm.
We need to balance the budget. Number three, we the citizens are paying for some services in this community that we shouldn't be paying for because it's not equitable to all of the citizens.
Exactly.
That's correct.
It's the Wyoming and the
It's happening.
New Jersey.
Did you get all those bullets?
You're gonna send an email and you're gonna put
I'm
those
not gonna
comments in
send
there.
an email, I'm telling you right now.
And don't forget,
Elise.
yeah, in New Jersey,
I am not, I want everybody, if you don't send your comments in to him, they ain't gonna
I'm
get
not writing this
put into
down,
the
this is
next-
coming between the gray matter, man.
They can continue. Any more for one?
And number four, included in the thing about the roads and what is being done and not being done, I can show you a stretch of embankment on the south side of a canal that runs for a couple, I guess a mile, that is overgrown. It is, people are using it for their own use, gainfully, they're, and our water district that we're paying for to keep the easements clear, haven't done anything about it. You bring it to their attention, well, it's, we'll get to it once. It's been on that chart for years.
It has been.
Plus, you take a look at waste management. We've got crews that bring outside garbage into our town in their trucks from Waste Pro, come and pick it up, put it on their trucks, they take it, have it weighed, and all of us sitting in this room are paying for it.
Really?
What is
I
it?
don't understand that
I
now.
don't either.
They weight the garbage and then,
In other words, those trucks that they pick up,
the garbage.
you
from
think
somewhere
they
else.
take it to the landfill for free? Is that what you're saying?
No, my question is, did you say that they pick up garbage from elsewhere?
They're picking up,
The landscape maintenance companies they own a piece of property, they bring it into the property, and then the solid waste takes it out.
that's
They're
correct.
supposed to
They
be
dump
paid
it from
commercial
Palm Beach,
rates.
from Palm Beach Island.
Anywhere else,
Over here.
it's coming in from outside of our
Do
borders.
they pay their own dumpsters?
You're supposed
No.
to pay commercial for
It's
that.
just a piece of
It's a
land.
business, right?
We don't pay for that.
Yes, we do.
We pay for residential only.
Everybody's,
If the
if,
commercial.
All right,
Everybody
wait,
uses
wait,
their
wait, let's hold on. We've got a code in this town that says that if you run the business, you're supposed to have a dumpster.
right,
Is that not so?
absolutely.
Is that not so? Correct, okay? There are lawn service businesses in this town, and there are businesses, quasi-businesses that are renting out property for people to spend overnight, that are putting out numbers of garbage cans every pickup day, and all of that gets charged across the board to the rest of us that aren't getting those kinds of services.
I don't understand that part, the last.
Okay, I'll tell you. There are places in this town that have overnight accommodations that people are staying in, not bed and breakfast. Bed and breakfasts are paying our taxes. These should be bed and breakfasts because they're accommodating people overnight, but they are putting out 6 to 8 garbage cans. How many do you put out?
Well, that's a
Whatever,
function
yeah.
of the garbage.
One or two.
Let me say
That's
this,
right,
the garbage company should be saying, we will only take 2 cans.
That's exactly right, but we don't have that. We don't have.
Let's get to the last page of this and we'll discuss that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think it's
Okay.
important, and I think we need to discuss it. But I'm not sure it needs to go on these charts.
I think that's sufficient
Because
to
it doesn't
call
really
them out
Okay.
to
All right.
relate, I mean,
take some enforcement action.
Our garbage waste pro contract does allow so many garbage cans per residential unit, and it's 6 garbage cans.
oh, really?
So that's included in the $342 a year that each resident is assessed.
Which is very generous.
That
It
is,
is
Yeah.
very generous.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and finish our last page? You want to do that?
Yeah, I think what you suggested is, we're into some very important, very complex issues here. And, we obviously, I think what you're saying is we need to simplify these charts.
We need to give you
and
feedback.
You guys need to give me feedback, and then I'll bring it back at the next meeting, but we have to, so just review these and send your feedback
Okay.
in to Mark, and then I'll review them. Now, when you get to page 230, the methodology, that is something that town management put together, which is, have you all read this? There's an awful lot opened up here. But I think what we need to do here is, the roads have been a bone of contention for the town for a long time. That's really the primary bone of contention, is what do we do with these roads? And, we have lots and lots of points that are made that are valid, but nobody's ever really come up with a recommended solution. What do we think they should be doing? Not what do we think, what do we think we can criticize about what they are doing, but let's come up with a constructive alternative. And what are we trying to tell them? And we need to get very clear on that.
And we need to know our legal, I have a question as to what our legally we can suggest, because based on the 2 House bills that are going in, and this terminology that the roads must be OGM'd before they're turned over to the town, which I have always questioned the logic in that. But that is staying in the House bill, is that correct?
I think that's open for discussion.
Well, that's why I'm just trying to say, when
Yeah.
we give this input, we need to know what we, what is constructive and what is being requested. Because I haven't, honestly have not looked at the last version of that bill. So is that binding, or may we make suggestions?
I think we can make suggestions.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, the one area where that's gonna be coming up, and we've already had this discussion at the IGC, is, for example, the road improvements on B Road, from Collecting Canal to Okeechobee, if those developments go in. They're working on a three-party agreement right now, and, we've had this discussion in the district. The district's kind of divided on it. Some folks in the district want to do the improvement, and I know Steve Yohe doesn't. He said, why wouldn't the town do the improvement? And I said,
What
"Yeah,
improvement are you talking about?
the ocean."
On B
Between
Road?
collecting,
Why?
and Okeechobee?
Well, why wouldn't the town do it? I would have thought the town would do
Well,
it.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, but there are some folks that seem to think that, no, the district would come forward and do it. And we're
No.
like, no, that's-
Well, I think you've got an issue where the district needs
So
to
I'm
be
just pointing
involved.
out-
That's right, that's what I'm asking, is how are we addressing that issue? Because I know there's that debate, so when we make these suggestions, so that's not set in stone?
No.
Okay.
And I will tell you, Steve Yohe is in agreement with us. I think now that we have a town engineer on board, he's very happy to play his role more as a regulator as it relates to,
Right. The
projects.
drainage.
So
Yeah,
it's,
the water control district needs to be involved because of the drainage issues and the canal maintenance issues, but not, I don't understand what, I've not heard that, but maybe I should start going to the water control district meetings.
Okay, Liz, why don't you go ahead and finish that?
Okay,
I
so
will-
basically, I would like, I don't know if everybody read all the issues that Perla brought up, but this is just the beginning of issues that we need to look at
Good.
in order to, was I not supposed to say?
No, he only concerns himself with item number 1.
That's it, open.
You are so wrong.
What we did was we tried to put a mechanism in place because y'all were discussing equity. And the chairman pointed out the fiscal policies that the council should implement the requirements of the fiscal policy as it related to that subject matter. So the goal up here at the top was pulled from the fiscal policies about equity and citizen demand and need. And so the first item was bills, and it was about the inequity between some of the citizens are being assessed for their road OGM projects, and the town is paying 100% for other roads. And so how do we balance that? So item number 1 was how could the town make some kind of equitable compromise for those citizens that are being assessed for a 10-year period for OGM projects, and now the town is doing roads themselves, and the citizens that live on those roads are not having to pay for that service. And then the other items were, how do we prioritize going forward if we have an equitable system? What kind of a system would it be? And one of them was the cost-benefit analysis. The more people live on the road, the bigger the road, and the bigger the impact to the most citizens, those roads should be considered first.
True.
Or we do a random selection where we pull them out of a hat. Because how do you determine equity? And everybody's treated fairly. There's got to be a plan in place, and random selection is one way. It's just like winning the lotto. Or the cost-benefit analysis.
No, I think we have a better chance of getting our roads paved than winning the lotto.
Didn't do it what?
Well,
Winning the lotto, yeah.
I'd rather win the lottery, I'm sorry.
Well, I think what we're
wonderful.
doing here is we're trying
All
to,
I'm asking is one time,
I
but
think the issue is you guys need to make, we just gave you, here's three prioritization methods. If you have more, add them, or pick one, or recommend all of them, recommend none of them. There's no pride of authorship.
right.
Could you explain briefly to C?
To
C.
C, yes. The issue is, okay, how are you gonna handle your problems? And one of the mechanisms, the only mechanism you have available for incurring debt is through a referendum. You could do a revenue referendum or a general obligation referendum. General obligation referendum means that you promise to raise taxes to whatever level necessary to pay off the debt. The revenue referendum, you could, for instance, say, we're gonna pledge all the half-cent sales tax, or we're gonna have municipal revenue sharing, or communication services to pay off the debt. That would be a revenue item. Or you could even use the gas tax. You could pledge the gas tax.
So this is not, you're not referring to a bond that we would, well, let me just say, you're not referring to a bond that you would sell to outside investors? Or we say
That would be
you
a
are,
bond.
and then we pledge it, we say we guarantee paying you through the revenue.
One of the two methods, either a dedicated revenue source or a referendum. In either case, you have to have a referendum, because your charter says you will have a referendum. But the bond, that was a mechanism by which you are, if you're going to pick up a plan, and then you need to know where the money's coming from.
This is excellent. I mean, it does identify a lot of issues that we need to be clear on.
Without speaking specifically about roads, because I've got somebody sitting next to me that's on my committee. I guess my question is, does the town want to get into debt in the first place before you look at 1A, there, or 2, what was it? Where was it again? C, right? The first question is, do you want to incur debt for any project? And what would that project have to be like for you to want to
Go into that.
go into that? You know, that should be the first conversation, I think.
I think what they're saying is, like you're saying, you want to go shopping, okay, you can use a credit card, you can borrow this, that. They're not saying, let's go and buy and use a credit card. They're saying, what are the different ways we can do it?
What are your
Not
options?
necessary, yeah.
Depending on what,
Yeah,
like
not
you said.
necessarily they're
And
going
it
to
is
do it, it just.
chicken and egg, but.
If they take, this was based on if they take all the money they have in their nest egg and they do the projects they're having now, there's no money in the nest egg. So how do you continue to make improvements to the roads, because you will need to improve those roads, with what money? And then the other question was, we've got citizens that are being assessed for the paving of their road, and then the town is going to spend their nest egg
On other people.
on other people's roads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna make a program that's equitable for the whole community, you have to make some decisions. Do you try to make some equity for those residents that are being assessed? Or you don't, and let those residents go down that road and they will pay an assessment for 10 years, and then going forward, the council will pick up the tab for the rest of the citizens' roads? Or are they gonna pick up the tab for some, and then after they do and they spend all their nest eggs, where are they gonna get the money to make the improvements down the road? And
How are they gonna maintain them?
That's the reason why I said that one of the items up there should be, how do they plan to balance the budget? Pure and simple. The money's gotta come from somewhere.
In order to do that, they have to
Yeah,
address
I know.
all this.
Yes.
In order to balance it, they have
Quasi.
to address all
Do
this.
that, you know.
I think we
Yeah,
have,
so,
I think we
shall
have
I?
used up our time, I think, for using this room. Are we supposed to move by 9:30?
You stay till
9,
eleven.
but 9, I think. by
You
9,
can
right?
stay, you can stay till midnight.
No, I'm talking about myself. I think, why do we do this? This is good information. Let's read it and then
Yeah.
send our feedback back to Mark, and then we get it there again. I think this material has a lot of vision and mission for the town. I think it deserves a lot more attention. We have to put together something that the town could make use of it, and then follow through. Some
I
of
mean-
them may not be everything, but at least if they are usable, then this is our desire, I think that's request and see that what they want.
Yeah, we're not here, I just want to add something to what Nina said, you know, what you just said. We're not here to say they
Let's do
should
this.
borrow money, or
It's for them to
they
consider.
should, you know, OGEM collecting canal, or they shouldn't OGEM. We're not here to specifically, that's the council's job, they're elected to do that, and we're not. We're the finance committee, and what we're saying is,
How much
when we
it
look
costs?
at your financials,
Here's your option.
the things that you've said you want to do
Can
are
we-
not gonna work. I mean, you know, that's what we're telling them. We're saying, you basically earmarked your entire capital budget for projects.
Can we,
And our expenses have gone up and our revenues have gone down and the two are not meeting. So what are we gonna do about this? And there are options that we can say, this is what your option is. You can, you know, if you want to, borrow money, but you need to do a referendum. But we're not advocating that you do it. It's there, we're just saying, you know, before we spend the 1.8 million, let's take a deep breath and look at, you know, make sure that we know who's gonna pay for what and what are our policies, and are they all gonna be paid for by landowners when they want a road improvement, or, you know, or if we're starting to pay for, you know, we start to put OGEM on people's roads that they haven't voted for it and they're not paying for it. What are you gonna do when the next person comes back to you and says, hey, I want my road and I want the town to pay for it?
Well, it's like what
Those
happened
are-
on Compton.
That's the
Can we
job of
get
the
it?
finance
Now they said, we
committee.
want our road redone,
Right.
and the town's paying for it, because
so after we had our input, we sent the mark, and then we'll get it back. And then we will have maybe another 2-3 hours just to further digest it, and then we'll send it out. I think that the town needs to
Hear from you.
consider it seriously, and I'm sure they could do it through a workshop. And-
I think you're, yes.
And that's elaborate further, because some of these are very, very important, conceptually or realistically, that they have to do something.
They need to deal with
Yeah.
these things,
And
yeah.
then, what about the last item? Can we defer it until next time, or is it necessary we have
what is
to
the last, it's
Number
very
8.
quick.
update? Is it quick update? Do we need more time that we can defer? Yeah. Or we do it next time? Okay. Well, let's stay on course with this good material, and then we will discuss it in further detail next time. And then, at least what we can do is that we present it to the council next after that, and we will request them to hold a workshop,
Your keyboard.
either on a weekend or on a regular weekday, evening. Huh?
We need a workshop.
Oh, yes, a lot of vision, yeah, that is very important.
But it would be a workshop between the town and the district, right? Or
I think
Let
you
them-
guys
let them
have a
coordinate.
workshop with the council.
Let them coordinate.
That's true, yeah.
Oh,
So
maybe
we-
the finance
That's-
committee
yeah,
have
we-
one with the
yeah,
council,
we can have
yeah.
with
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah,
Elise,
these
Then
two
they
could.
can,
Elise,
Put
Yeah.
these together.
suggestion,
Uh-huh.
we give a historical graph of, by year,
Yeah,
of
That's
revenues, of expenses, of capital expenses, and what's been promised out of the capital expenses.
yeah.
And you can have
See, if
I
they,
have all those
I read it
numbers,
in
but that's adding more detail, and you guys are saying.
Yeah, I know, but-
No, it's pictured, simple.
but it's
A
a
visual
graph
graph.
is a visual,
Revenues from 2010 to 20.
Use Excel and make
yeah,
it
for
short.
whatever years,
And
you
why are
know,
they
in the
going
last
down,
3 or
and
4
expenses,
years.
and why are they going up?
Yeah,
Yeah, we do need that, I agree.
Okay.
It's very simple, it's just Excel.
I can do that.
Can we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make
I
it.
make it.
Motion
I
by,
know we have council comments, we need to get everybody's comments.
Nobody has
I
any
just want to
comments,
pick everybody
right?
up. Okay, let's finish it up.
I do.
Okay.
Hey,
Let's go.
we're going around the room and do
Okay.
comments, right?
Why do we have public comments? Gentlemen,
Do you guys have any comments?
Nina,
I think I said enough for a day.
you've got a form, you can say
Yeah,
anything you want.
say something, no, say
Yeah,
something.
you,
yeah.
anything to add? Keith, you have, no, a few?
No, I think the good idea to have the council and the finance committee, and this is something very important. They need to do that, and it's a very large, and this is a job of the finance committee
Yeah.
to bring it up to them, because there's nobody else who's gonna do it.
Right.
So that's a very good thing.
Bella? Mr. Bill? Mr. Bill, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Anything
Okay.
to add?
I think this is probably a very productive meeting. I think the issue, the reason we have such a problem, with it, just my humble opinion, the problem we have with roads is we don't consider all the roads as the town roads, period, with no distinction.
Yep.
And then we can figure out, because I just did a little number, if we owe Jim just the 26 miles of the quote-unquote town roads, it would take you 30 years. At the rate
That's
we
job
go.
security.
What do you mean it would take
30 years to do what?
If you assume that you're spending $177,000 per mile, it'll take you 30 years to get that done if you use the gas tax money at $150,000 a year.
Thank you.
Slow boat.
Mark,
No comment.
Ken, anything to add? Virginia?
Nope. Good meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking about some very complex issues here. They're not simple. And I think the committee's doing a great job of trying to tackle them, you know, in a fair way. And, you know, let's just put it on the table and let's talk about it, whatever the issues are. And whatever, you know, and I'm hoping that we can come up with a unanimous recommendation, whatever it is, that we all support it and we all, and the only other thing I think that what really, sometimes I think the town's had a lot of divisiveness and a lot of fighting. And sometimes we need to really look at what are the alternatives? What are the positive recommendations that we can make? You know, if you don't like something, then what is it that you're recommending that we do instead? What should we do and how should we do it? And you know, and let's really give them a recommendation that is achievable, you know, that's realistic, that we can all believe in, and that, you know, moves things forward instead of just going back around and around and around the same old issues. I mean, let's fix them. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Sure.
No, no comment.
In conclusion, this is a good meeting. I think we need to follow through with our comments and suggestions. We are serving on an advisory basis. Hopefully they could take a few items from what we advise. I think they will do a lot of good for the town. And thank you so much for the time. Thank you for the audience staying to finish with us. We have a motion to adjourn.
No, I think somebody would be.
I'll second.
Been there, done that.
Okay, everybody move and second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I know you,
Okay.
I get feedback.
Pass.
Shut up.
You think adjourn?